The Uneducated Economist here. Let me fix my camera there a little bit. All right, left a few links down in the description. The first one is to an interview I did with Patrick from Sat Pulse channel. Go check that out. I have left a link, like I said, down in the description for that interview. We're going to go to the Stock Pulse Silver Symposium. Sorry guys, I just got set up here and kind of a little bit stumbling over my words here. But wanted to share that link with you to that interview. It was an excellent conversation that I had with Patrick, and I really wanted to thank Patrick for not only inviting me down to the Silver Symposium down in Las Vegas, which is going to be occurring next week, but also just thank him for the interview too. It's been a while since I've been on another YouTube channel to do an interview, and it was a lot of fun to do that. So anyway, links are down in the description for everything. Wanted to talk a little bit about the bullwhip effect. Now, part of like what I've been trying to share lately here on YouTube is how to own your own economy. And part of owning your own economy is understanding what I feel is 4 basic economic theories. They're not basic to understand, they're kind of complicated to understand, but it's just four simple like economic theories. Cantillon effect, the Gresham's law, Triffin's dilemma, and then bullwhip effect. And bullwhip effect is one that is not talked about a lot. And this bullwhip effect, basically how this operates is that there is, in order to understand this theory, is that there is misunderstandings of what has taken place within the supply chain between the manufacturers and the distributors out there, and the retailers and everything else. There is a very misunderstanding of how much the inventory levels to how much production to how much is actually being purchased or how much demand is actually taking place out there. And now one of the places that we can see where there was an under capacity, like there wasn't enough, was in freight. And freight rates ran through the roof. When we had all those freight liners parked off of the coast of LA waiting to get unloaded, that was when we had freight rates running through the roof. Well, now go take a look at the article I leave down in the description, and you're going to find that freight rates are dropping dramatically, right? And that, you know, the peak season in which that they thought was going to bring back a lot of the demand for shipping containers and to bring that, you know, the material over from China or Asian nations or whatever, just, you know, the freight in general, we're finding that there wasn't that much demand, right? And now the reasoning behind this is because there really was an overstocking that had taken place during the pandemic, right? This is now the equilibrium that is trying to find itself, and where we had this oversupply to undersupply to oversupply again, well, it's finding itself right now in freight. So now when we think about that, when we had the severing of the supply chain and all of a sudden people were told to stay home, don't, you know, go to work, don't be, you know, driving the trucks, don't be driving the forklifts, none of that stuff, and we had a shutdown of the supply chain, and all of a sudden we had a congestion starting to take place. Well, that was very difficult to then sort through. As that was taking place, the shelves emptied out, right? So now all of a sudden, you know, you go down to the store and there's no inventory, right? You know, you're finding shortages happening all over the place. Well, it really wasn't a shortage. It was the fact that it was stuck out there in a container somewhere. I mean, how many times did you hear that? You know, it was stuck on a container somewhere coming from China. So this is really what was causing the shortage. It wasn't like, you know, all of a sudden like there wasn't like, you know, supply out there. The supply was available. It wasn't like available, but it was in existence. It just wasn't getting through the system, right? And so now when that took place, right, there was a huge demand going to the manufacturers. And so think about this for just a second, because that's really where the bullwhip effect started to take place. Because when you create that disruption, right, it's already difficult to know exactly where you need inventory levels. But once you create this severing, right, and then you have a difficulty trying to get this material through the system, now how is it that the manufacturers and the retailers know exactly how much that is in the system that is just being stuck? right? So now the retailers are ordering a lot of stuff and the manufacturers start ramping up production, only to find out that the warehouses that are filling up all of a sudden are not getting the material out to the retailers, right? They run a bunch out, the economy opens up, some of this material gets out there to the retailers, but all of a sudden the orders fall, right? No more orders going to the manufacturers. Well, if there's no orders going to the manufacturers, then there's probably not going to be a whole lot of freight that's going to be shipping over to the United States. And if there's not a lot of freight coming over to the United States, then we're going to start finding that the freight rates are going to be dropping and dropping dramatically. And that's what we're starting to find right now going on with within this within the shipping container indexes. Sorry guys, I'm just kind of stumbling over my words today. And all right, well, thank you very much everybody for being here. Let's see, we got 54 people and 17 likes. When you're done with your monologue, how do you feel about state government intervention into the economy and its economics and force of nature? Okay, so, well, let's think about that for just a second. Did they really involve themselves in the economy? Remember when they were talking about getting the National Guard involved in moving all these containers? I mean, what would have happened if they actually had done that and got that material through the nation and got it to the to the distribution hubs, and then eventually to the retailers, where we didn't have a huge disruption in the supply chain? I mean, what if the government actually did step up and do something like that? Well, then we would have had a major change to what was taking place within the freight industry, because during the pandemic, when all of a sudden truckers were in high demand, you had a lot of investment taking place within the trucking industry. So now what happened? Like, trucking companies like Yellow are now going out of business, right? Or going bankrupt. And we'll find out what happens. I mean, didn't they get bought out? I think they did, right? Or at least somebody was buying them out. And so we think about, like, what would have happened had the government actually intervened, right? And done something, like had the National Guard moving that stuff around and doing all that stuff. Would have any of that stuff taken place? Would have that overinvestment gone into a lot of these trucking industries or these trucking companies, only to find themselves going bankrupt today? Right? So, I mean, I do wonder about that. I'm not saying that was a good or bad thing. I think that letting the free market to fix things is going to be more beneficial in the long run than to have government intervention to do anything about it. But, I mean, if you're, anyway, that's my answer to the question. I broke my glasses the other day, by the way. Oops, let me use this here. All right. How will student loan payments affect the macro economy? A lot of people have asked me that question, and I am still curious on to what it is that, people think that is going to happen themselves. Like, no matter what, you end up figuring it out a way. Like, is it going to put a huge drain on the economy? Well, yeah, I'm hoping for that. They've been trying to figure out a way to put a drain on the economy for some time. Jeez, I hope you guys can hear me with all this rain. But, they've been trying to put a drain on the economy for some time. They've been raising interest rates, talking about the inflation expectation running rampant. They're trying to get people to not spend money. That's another way of doing it. It is to start to reinstate the repayment program. But now, how much of an actual drain is that going to have on the economy? I still question it. I'm just curious on how many people are actually going to be making the payment, right? And then what is it that's actually going to happen to them? Are they going to get their wages garnished and stuff like that? We have to see what takes place, but I don't know. To me, I think it's going to have less of an impact on the economy as it is going to have a major impact on individuals. Like, there's probably more of an impact to an individual person than it is to the grand economy, or to the macro economy. Yo, thanks for streaming, you. Yeah, well, thank you for being here, guys. All right, oh yeah. Man, can you guys even hear me? Is lumber still pricey? Can you guys hear me okay? This is like super loud, man. It's like, I mean, all right. Is lumber pricey? Yeah, lumber's pretty pricey when you consider like where we are as far as like where we've been in history. Like, when you think about a 2x4/8 standard and better, that's like probably the most common piece of lumber that you're gonna find out there. And in 2x4/8 standard and better, really should sell for somewhere around $2.50 to say $3.50. That would be like a typical price prior to the pandemic. Now, back in 2017, 18, we were selling a 2x4/8 standard and better for, $4.29, $4.50. And then right as the pandemic started to kick in, there was a huge crash in lumber prices, or right before it started to take place, actually. It was in 2019 we started seeing a dramatic drop in lumber prices because it went from $650 per thousand down to like, I don't know, I think $300 per thousand or something. I can't remember exactly. I don't have a chart in front of me to look at, but during that time, that's when a bunch of mills had shut down. Now, it was again like in 2017, 2018 that we saw lumber prices around, like, I saw a 2x4/8 standard and better selling for around $4.29. Right now, we have 2x4s at $4.79, something like that, just under $5. At the height of the pandemic, they were $13.50. So is it pricey? No, not at all. I mean, 2x4s are very inexpensive right now when you consider where they have been, even for the last 5 years, right? So right now is a good time to buy 2x4s. Plywood, little different story. Plywood's kind of expensive right now. Half-inch CDX is selling for around $27.50 a sheet. This is your most common like sheathing plywood out there. And normally that would sell for say $18 to $22 a sheet, even prior to the pandemic. But even during the pandemic, it ran up to $80 a sheet. So at $27 a sheet, yeah, it's pretty cheap considering that. But really, I mean, it should be down under $25 a sheet personally. But it's at 27 and some change, so that's not too bad, All right, cool. Next question. Whoa. Stay here with me, guys. All right. As a perfectionist, I wanted to perfect the statement death in taxes to just death. I hear you just fine. The rain sound is soothing to me. Right on. I'm in a loud restaurant, so it's pouring out there. Yeah, it is. It was definitely pouring. Very loud. All right. Well, it's chilled out. Okay, I can hear you fine. Very cool. Yeah, I can hear you, but the background noise is crazy. Student loans and ramen noodles instead of salt grass. So, oops. Yeah, so following like the bullwhip effect and what's going to happen from that. So you can imagine that if the bullwhip effect is going to continue and what could lead from this freight dropping, like you think about it, if there is an overcapacity, because that's really how they think about it, is like how much room is there on the ship to move freight. And they have scheduled shipments, right? They're like, okay, yeah, we're this ship is gonna be on this location at this time. Like they know like it's a route, And when all of a sudden, like they get there and they're finding that, whoa, wait a minute, there's not enough to put on this ship to make it even worthy to go, right? All of a sudden, like ship rates just fall. They're looking for anything to put on this boat in order to get it across the river, right? Or get it across the ocean. So anyway, when you think, okay, so what is that really telling us? There's not a lot of freight coming. Well, if there's not a lot of inventory coming, what does that mean for us here in the United States? There's going to be, at some point in the future, a lack of inventory, right? This is something that I've said for quite some time. So the consuming is still taking place here in the United States. The Federal Reserve is saying that it's still too strong. They're thinking about keeping interest rates, not thinking, they signaled that they are going to raise interest rates going into the future. And that is because the consumer is still out there, pushing away, doing its thing here in the economy. So now when all the inventory is cleared out and there's no freight coming, right? And the manufacturers who have relocated to new places like Mexico need to reestablish those distribution networks, right, to bring the, the rail lines, bring the, the shipping freighters and all that other stuff. All that needs a reconfiguration, right? And it's happening right now. I mean, they talked about the Great Reset. It's taking place. But what happens when all of a sudden the orders start to rise because the inventory levels are starting to fall, right? And the manufacturers are having a difficult time getting it to us. This is when the real shortages begin to take place, right? The oversupply to undersupply to oversupply. And so as the orders start to really ramp up and the manufacturers start to ramp up production, then we're going to start finding that the freight is going to start finding its, capacity again, or at least the, capacity will begin to get filled at that point. So I can imagine what's going to happen here in the United States as we are sitting on incredibly high interest rates, and all of a sudden the shortages start to kick in, which is going to do what? Create inflation. Because once you have shortages, you're going to have inflation expectation running hot again. And if inflation expectation is running hot, then that creates inflation. So the real inflation is going to be coming yet, right? Even though we have like all this talk about how the inflation is coming down. Just think about how the inventory is going to be like lacking here in the future if we don't have stuff coming from, being shipped over here from China. Oh gosh, these glasses are terrible. All right. Did you see the news about the indefinite diesel and gasoline export ban by Russia? Yeah, I did see that. I'm still looking to see like what kind of impact that's really going to have on prices and I basically the diesel network. I mean, I'm not sure exactly how this works. I would really love to find somebody who has good knowledge of like the gas industry, like somebody, or the oil industry, somebody who I could talk to personally about it, but I really don't know anybody within that industry. It's funny because like, a lot of the things that are taking place within the, war with Ukraine and what Russia is doing and the deals that they're making or not making, it's kind of interesting to see like the global changes that are okay. I'm kind of fading here. Just recently, did you see how the diamond exports from Russia, right? I wish I had the link for that. I should have left it down in here in the description, but this is a good one. So if I got this right, there's diamond exports from Russia, who I guess is like one of the number one exporters of diamonds, and they all go to India, right? Or the majority of them go to India, which is the number one cutting, polishing industry or nation in the world, right? So like all these diamonds are coming out of Russia and going to India, getting polished and then distributed out to the world. Okay. So trying to cut off funding to Russia in all ways, part of that is with this diamond trade, right? So they're going to try and prevent these diamonds from coming into Russia. Or not, I'm coming from Russia, going into India and then being distributed out there to the world. So what they're going to do with this is they're going to change the way the diamond industry is tracked by tokenizing diamonds, right? And this is the beginning. I mean, it's not the beginning. This is happening all over the place. But it's funny how they're using the excuse of what's going on with Russia as the reason to tokenize diamonds. Now you think about it, it's not the diamonds out of Russia that I'm thinking are going to be the ones that they're concerned about tokenizing. It's all the ones that they actually want to track and trace and keep, keep attention to. Anything that's not within that system, therefore is no longer included, right? So you don't like tokenize the Russian. I mean, you could tokenize Russian diamonds, but it's not the matter of tokenizing Russian diamonds. It's a matter of tokenizing all the rest of the diamond industry, is what I'm feeling from that, right? And then in order to buy a diamond, or to legally do it, so you're not facing some kind of charges for helping Russia out for whatever reason, then you have to go within these tokenized diamonds, which is going to be on the blockchain and all the other stuff that goes along with that. It's just like kind of like one of those leading things. And it's funny because Russia, if I remember right, is also got nickel tokenized now. So it's like a lot of industries, and it seems to be happening a lot within Russia, as far as like these I don't like this one, like the excuse of it and stuff. And anyway, I wish I had those articles in front of me. All right. Most of those diamonds are machine grade, not jewel grade. Yeah, but I mean, I understand that, but it's not the point I'm getting at. It's just like it's the idea that they are going to try and figure out a way to start tokenizing these particular things, and that's what I'm more concerned. Like, I mean, diamonds or coal or whatever it happens to be. It's the idea that that this is how they're going to do it, right? Is by tokenizing the stuff, and it's just going to lead into other things, like everything eventually being tokenized, including our wages and stuff. All right. The predatory government representatives. All right, sounds like a De Beers scheme. Yeah, probably. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised by that. We all know who owns the monopolized the world's diamond industry, but I won't say it's in polite company. Yeah, well, this is what's like, I mean, I don't know how they plan on. I mean, I guess it's just like it's all about audits and tracking and doing whatever. But I mean, I guess there is a way. Somebody was like, had brought up a point when I was talking about this about how they can like, do testings to find out exactly where the mine or what, where that location of diamond had originated from, where the origin of it was, which I find pretty interesting within itself because then, like at that point, it was just like, well, then, you could just test the diamonds to see where they came from, so why do you actually need to tokenize it? Which brought up another question for me. Anyway, thinking out loud. All right. Simon, your connection is fuzzy and delayed. Yeah, I don't really like doing live streams from right here because of that. I'm at home and I don't really get good connection here because I don't have Wi-Fi yet. It's coming any day now. So, but I didn't really want to drive to town to do the live stream. So, do you believe in flat Earth? So, I stood on the top of Mauna Kea, which has a bunch of observatories up there, for studying the stars, and it has one of the most unobstructed views of the horizon that you can find on the planet. Right? It's like awesome, and you get way up there to the top. It's funny because like you think Hawaii, you wouldn't see snow, right? But there's snow on the top of Mauna Kea, right? So if you go up there and it's nice and clear, you can see the curvature of the earth, right? Like you can actually see it bend, from, it's like you can, like it's obvious, right? That it's that way. So when people talk about flat earth, I think about like, have you ever stood up there and saw that and tried to, describe that? It's anyway. All right. Oh, the dice on the 2x6 is a nice effect. Yeah, my boy ran out and got them for me and threw them up there. All right. Most all diamonds these days are laser etched with serial numbers. Yeah, I'm trying to see the numbers on the dice. Well, I think one of them's kind of covered up there. You got like 1, 4, 5, 1. I think it's 4, 5, 1 that you're looking at on both sides. Let's see here. I have a house. I don't have any construction going on, but I am thinking it would be a good to buy 4 sheets of plywood and some 2x4 stash. Any recommendation? Yeah, the 2x4 you might hold off, unless you absolutely need them. I mean, if you're like, I mean, because I'm thinking if you're buying lumber right now, then you probably need it, right? Or if you're looking to buy, 2x4s because you're going to need them for a future project here, but just to store them. If you're looking for that really good price, lumber prices have just recently fallen under 500 per thousand, and that happened last week. So I don't know how long or how far out that's actually going to take to incorporate itself into the retail prices, because lumber sales are really slow right now. So unless you have a turning over of material, then it's very difficult to get those new prices into the system. It's not like you go down to the retail side of things and all of a sudden, like, just because lumber futures have fallen, that you can go down there the next day and say, hey, lumber prices have fallen. How come you got retail at so expensive? Is because, they bought it months ago, and so, or weeks ago or whatever, and the prices are still high for them, right? On the price that they had purchased at. So it would have to be like, under 500 per thousand for a while, before you start seeing turning over of inventory and start seeing those retail prices coming down to a point that, it would be a better price for you. But again, like right now, they're not bad, and I don't see them going up. So there's no hurry at this point to try and buy into the lumber price, or to this particular point. Plywood, on the other hand, you might, like, if you need plywood, then you might want to pick that up, because there is reports of OSB manufacturers who are even more in like curtailments and shutdowns and depletions. And the OSB manufacturers, this is the alternative to plywood. So a lot of times when you in the new construction industry, you're going to use OSB for your sheathing, and plywood is like, the more expensive alternative version of OSB. Well, the OSB demand is quite high right now, and when you got the manufacturers really in a lack of production, I mean, I'll go and get the report. I don't have it in front of me, so I can't really give you the numbers or the companies that are out there doing this, but it's been recent that it's happened, and I'll try and get that information for you. But anyway, the pressure on the OSB market, as far as the lack of production, is going to put ever increasing amounts of pressure on the plywood side of things. So I can't imagine plywood prices going down from here, but really only going up. So anyway, I mean, if you need plywood, I think now would be a good time to get your sheathing, get like CDX plywood. It wouldn't be a bad idea to get a hold of that. But lumber, you might hold off just a little bit on, unless you absolutely need it, or you just whatever, not too worried about storing it, or whatever. So, but again, like, I think 2x4s you could probably buy at a cheaper price. Well, not necessarily a cheaper price, but not at an elevated price going into the winter here. I don't see it going up, not until really, like, because like, my whole thing was home builder sentiment, right? I mean, that's really what it came down to, was home builder sentiment, because the inventory levels for lumber had gone from its oversupply, undersupply, doing its bullwhip effect, right? We saw it happening. I reported on it since 2018, right? 2019. And it's really starting to find, its level. And I'm not saying like it's finding its level, because mills are in curtailment, they're shutting down, but it's not as dramatic as it once was. Part of that has to do with the change in the way they do the futures contract, and it brings in more people who can now participate within the futures contract, because they're a quarter of the size of what they once were. It used to be 110,000 board feet. Now it's 25% of that, or whatever that works out to, a little over 25,000 board feet, 27,500, what is that? Yeah. Which, anyway, it went from a rail car size down to a truckload, or a semi-truckload size. And now there's like lumber yards, builders, retailers, all kinds of people who can start participating within the futures market, who probably would have been priced out before, and it was just like a handful of brokers who were messing around with the futures market. Not saying that those guys still don't do it, but now there's more players in the game, and that's hopefully going to find a more stable price, because of the amount of people who are buying into these futures contracts. So, home builder sentiment, though, this was the key to it. This was when, if you go and you look at it, there's three parts to it. I can't remember exactly what they are. Sales condition, buyer's traffic, and like, I think like builder's condition, like like cost of material and stuff like that, labor conditions. So all three of them, well, they haven't gone negative. One of them, the home sales condition, is still just slightly positive, but it's about ready to go negative. I was saying the whole time, if you find where all three of those went positive, then you would find that there was not enough material in the system, and that you would find lumber prices jump, right? And I didn't know how far they would go. I wasn't about ready to predict that, but it didn't happen, right? The home builders didn't jump into the game and become so happy with it that the index went positive. It was positive in two of the three fashions of this index, but the buyer traffic index was like way negative. Like, I don't think it ever went in above like into the 40s. I think it was down in the 30s the entire time, like, or at least for the last few months. And it doesn't seem like it's going to get any better as long as interest rates are elevated. So now the home builders are not really into the game, right? Well, if they're not into the game, then the demand for lumber is not going to be, out there for the mills to ramp up production. So the longer this goes on, the leaner inventory gets. And at some point, it will turn around. Like, I mean, there will be a demand for lumber that is going to outpace the supply, and the prices will move up. How far out in the future, I couldn't tell you. But right now, it doesn't appear to be occurring from the home builders. Like, I was waiting for that index to turn completely positive. It didn't happen. All right. Earth is flat. Is this known around the world? Okay. Simon, I saw that you liked post about collaborating with Tom Luongo. Will you be doing that? Oh, I got an email, I believe, on that. Yeah, I got to go and check that. I've been super busy here lately. Just, I don't know, trying to get my life together. There's so much going on. You know what's funny, guys, is I have no idea what I'm going to say when I go down to Vegas. So I'm just going to go down there and, get the vibe, get the feel for what people are talking about and saying, and then I'm going to get up on stage and just kind of wing it and see what comes out. I got, I believe, an hour slot where I'm thinking, maybe just kind of go off for, a half an hour or 45 minutes or something, whatever time I can do without, and then maybe do some Q&A and that, and then I'm sitting on a panel as well. And I'm looking forward to the panel discussion. I think that'll be a lot of fun. So. And again, that's at the Stockpole Silver Symposium here in Vegas at the next week. Crazy how people make $100K, can't buy a house, and cereal is $7 box, but people worried about if the earth is flat. Who cares, bro? That's kind of interesting. I bought cereal. I bought two big old boxes of cereal today for $5. I see a lot of good prices out there. That's the thing. Like, yeah, there's elevated prices everywhere, but there's really good prices out there too. Like, you can find where the oversupply hit particular spots in the economy, or maybe particular products, and you need to search those out. It's like they're out there for sure. Is Earth flat? Alright. Art Berman would be a good guess for oil-related topics. Flat Earth. Calling 6 on the die. The Earth is flat broke. Yeah, it is. It's just interesting how water levels are used to determine how flat a surface is, yet all seems to believe the water of the ocean's curve. Just saying. I mean, I don't know. Magic Man, water doesn't stick to a sphere. Can't you rebuild Google Map of the UN? Okay, question. Here we go. If the government can print money, why do they need to sell treasury bills? It will happen if nobody wants to buy treasury bills anymore, right? No. I mean, okay, so you got to think let me see. The government doesn't print money, right? The government can print money. They're called U.S. Treasury notes, and that's not even money, because money, as Lord Humongous will probably pop up here and tell us, is that there is no money other than gold and silver, right? So when we're talking about money, we're actually talking about currency, and we're talking about U.S. dollars. We're talking about cash, right? So it's not the U.S. government that is printing money, right? It's the Federal Reserve, which is a private banking organization. And what they're doing is they're printing up a liability, which is that Federal Reserve notes and the bank, reserves and stuff like that that's going out there. That's basically what they are using to buy an asset. That asset is U.S. Treasuries, right? Now that's monetizing the debt, and they're not supposed to do that, right? They're not supposed to monetize the debt by buying U.S. Treasuries. But because they're not buying them directly from the Treasury, they buy them through the secondary market, the primary dealers, which is the big banks out there. Those primary dealers, they're the ones who go to auction, buy the U.S. Treasuries. The Federal Reserve then comes in and buys those Treasuries from the big banks, or what they refer to as the primary dealers. These assets, right, the U.S. Treasuries are considered assets. Those end up on the balance sheet of the Federal Reserve, and what ends up going out is cash, or their liabilities, or what they refer to as their liabilities. So just like any balance sheet out there, the asset, U.S. Treasuries, sit on the balance sheet of the Federal Reserve, and currency or money or treasuries or whatever, or not treasuries, but reserves or whatever you want to call it, moves out into the system. Now, what sits on the balance sheet of the Federal Reserve doesn't necessarily have to be U.S. Treasuries. In fact, it's not just U.S. Treasuries, it's all kinds of stuff. Part of that is mortgage-backed securities, right? Which is a lot of people's loans. Like if you're not familiar with mortgage-backed securities, if you took a box, filled that box with a bunch of mortgages, and then sold that box off to an investor, that's like a mortgage-backed security, right? Just kind of like real simply explained. So the Federal Reserve has a bunch of those sitting on their balance sheet. A bunch more money goes out. They have gold. They have SDRs. SDRs are special drawing rights. That's a basket of world currencies that are put together. They don't have or limited to U.S. Treasuries. They could be buying, like, say, foreign debt, like the debt of another nation out there, and put that on their balance sheet. Now that makes me wonder: can they print out like liabilities, like U.S. dollars, Federal Reserve notes, with on their balance sheet holding foreign debt? Like, to me, like that, like it starts to really makes me wonder is like how the legalities of that, which I believe is legal, as far as within their charter, and then what could that mean for like the dominance as far as like world currency? It's like that is a whole new game out there, right? So, but the government doesn't print money, right? It's the Federal Reserve, and they can print money, like they're called U.S. Treasury notes, but they don't do that, not anymore. That helps. I live in tornado hail country. I thought it would be handy to have some on hand. Okay. Explain how everyone in the Southern Hemisphere uses Southern Cross as a point. Okay, you guys are talking flat earth, Jason. Is it raining in Astoria? It's raining a lot in Astoria right now. Okay. What happened to water when it's suspended in midair? You guys are still talking about that? Okay. It's a conspiracy by Big Plywood. No, I don't think so. I don't think it's a conspiracy by Big Plywood. I think it is a reestablishment of where these manufacturers are moving from and to. I think that's the bigger thing, right? Now, when we think about OSB manufacturers and who is manufacturing this particular product, there is a lot of Canadian production that is moving. Probably a lot of it's moving. I'm just very, just questioning, a lot of this, but I would assume that a lot of it is going to be moving either into the southern part of the United States or down into Mexico, right? Now, the reason for that is that the British Columbia area, they have really their area is very fouled up as far as their forest industry goes. Between the bug infestation, wildfires, management, whatever's going on up there, their forestry industry is going to have issues for the next 30 years. Down in the southern part of the United States, down in the, I believe in like the Georgia area, that area is really abundant right now with pine plantations, the pine, like southern yellow pine, right? And with these plantations, these logs are like the perfect size right now. And these Canadian mills are now setting up operations down in the southern part of the United States. When that starts to ramp up production, the byproduct of those mills is going to be OSB and, or the chips, the pulp industry. So the other byproducts from that are going to be making those products like OSB and stuff like that. Who is the manufacturer of that? Do they ship that stuff down to Mexico and make it down there, or do they manufacture it in the United States? Or what happens with it? Who knows yet? I mean, I haven't figured that part out. I don't know if it's gotten that far, if they, at what point that actually comes online. But we're finding that there is definite issues happening within the OSB market coming out of Canada, where there's slowdown in production taking place. And we reported on that back in 2019, towards the end of it. And you can go back on my channel and take a look, where they were pulling like hundreds of billions of board feet of OSB off the market or off production. And that was reported back in 2019. So it's no reason why we ain't seeing we're seeing the effects of it now. I mean, it was obvious it was going to come. Now, whether that was manipulated, I don't know. Like, I don't think that was manipulated, because that's quite the manipulation to have to reestablish your entire network of distributing lumber and byproducts of lumber from the British Columbia all the way down to the southern part of the United States. I mean, is that an actual manipulation? The bug infestation and the wildfires and all that, maybe some mismanagement. I can understand that part of it, but the rest of it, conspiracy theory, not really. I don't think so. I think it's just the way it's going down. I mean, there might be people who are within the industry who understand what's happening and taking extreme advantage of it. And in that sense, yeah, okay, we can talk some conspiracy. I mean, I can see it in something like that. Okay, so just wrong about it. Okay. The price of lumber is like fuel; it never goes back down. No, it did. It did. I mean, we're right now we're at 2000. We're at 2018 prices, right? Prior to the pandemic, all that other stuff. In fact, if you go and you look at an inflation calculator right now, and considering that lumber was selling for $1.50 back in 1980. I mean, I heard people saying they could get it for $1, whatever. But really, if you go into 1985, you do $1.50, and you look to what inflation is today, you're gonna find that 2x4s are right in pace. Right? There's no real dramatic increase to the price of lumber right now. Building materials, on the other hand, the rest of the stuff, siding, doors, windows, all that stuff, that did move up, and that has not come back down, right? All that stuff is still quite expensive, but lumber itself, that's not that expensive, considering, Alright. If you live in the right area, you can make your own lumber, you just need time. Well, yeah, I mean, but if you plan on building a house, like getting a permit to build a house, then you have to have that lumber graded. So then not only do you have to produce it, but then it has to meet grade, right? It has to be graded, and then you can use it to build a house with. I mean, if you're just building a cabin or something, and it's not a permitted thing, then yeah, you can do it yourself. Interest rates aren't high enough. Yeah, apparently they're not. I mean, it's not putting a damper on the consumer enough. The Federal Reserve is promising higher rates coming into the future, so... yes, been there, done that. No longer in the Pacific Northwest, so not good to work here. My house being built is 1740 square feet. 3-bedroom, 2-bath for $273,000. It's DSLD. It's supposed to be in the top 30 home builders in U.S. Homes are going like hotcakes here still in Louisiana. Neither of my parents made more than $90K a year, and over 40 years of work and parenting, they never had any financial problems. Yeah, well, part of that is not living beyond your means. If you take out a lot of debt, if you have difficulties coming up with your monthly payments, and all of a sudden you have a downturn in your income, or you have an unexpected increase in expenses, it becomes very difficult to maintain your life, right? And then things start to deteriorate after that. Are you planning on visiting anywhere when you go to Vegas? I'm not exactly sure. I am staying for a couple extra days after the conference, but I didn't really have any plans yet. So, there is a friend, I have a friend who's going to be there, so I'm looking forward to, just hanging out, and, they've been there before, so it's like, I don't know, I'm just going to go and hang out. I don't know what I'm going to do. I'm more excited about the conference and thinking about that than I am like what I'm going to do as far as the Vegas adventure. I'm not into drinking and I don't gamble, so it's like I could do shows in restaurants, like I'd be down for something like that. Lived on Old Timers place with a sawmill. It was a sawmill blade powered by an old Packard engine and transmission. Loud as hell. Yes. There you go. Over his head, off the feet. Humongous Chungus Among Us. Jerome Powell is a genius. No, he's not. Jerome Powell is nothing. Man, Jerome Powell is he's like the world's spokesperson that everybody gives too much credit to. He doesn't do anything. I shouldn't say that. He's got a vote on the FOMC, right? He's got a vote on the Federal Open Market Committee for Monetary Policy, but he doesn't do anything other than voice the opinion of the FOMC. Right? He gives the Fed statement on monetary policy. But he doesn't really make any decisions, I mean, he might make a decision for himself on the way he votes. He might give his opinion out there on his discussions on what he thinks the economy is going on, but he has no real power over monetary policy. And so when people talk about wanting to fire Jerome Powell, or saying that he messed up, or even like this, where he's a super intelligent genius or something like that, that's far too much credit. He doesn't have that, Man, it is dumping out here. Holy moly. Had to confirm Jay Powell's first name is actually Jerome. Only white guy with that name guaranteed. Alright, hopefully the market stays consistent here, building like neighborhoods. Yeah? I mean, go and take a look at the amount of housing starts and permit issuance that is taking place right now. And compare it for throughout history. Just take a chart back, take it to a Fred chart, the Federal Reserve chart. So just type in permit issuance, FRED, right? And it should pop up with the chart there, and take it back to the max history, and you're going to see that there's really not that many housing starts taking place right now. And the reason is that most people who are building homes have to be professional home builders. There was a time in this world, or in this country, where the average guy with just some carpentry skills could construct a house. They're not that complicated. They're really not. To frame a house isn't. I mean, nowadays, they're a lot more complicated because there's so many more issues and building codes and all kinds of stuff that goes into building a house. But really, a house from 1970 is really simple to build. They're not difficult. And so when you think about the abilities for an individual to go out there and build a home for themselves, that's not really in the cards anymore. So now it's just left to the home builders to do it. And if you're not a professional home builder, then most likely you're not going to be building homes. So that's one my belief is one of the reasons why we're seeing a lack of home building taking place. Is because people just simply can't do it for themselves. Man, this sucks. I broke my glasses. All right. Wife is watching Goonies on Sling right now, and someone just asked if it was raining in Astoria. Author Jules Verne believed in hollow earth, which could be connected to flat earth, although I don't know if Vernon was a flat earther. He believed earth could be explored inwards as much as outwards. Huh. I wonder if those guys who drill for oil would think the same thing. Yeah. Did not expect my big plywood comment in response to flat earth to be taken seriously. Well played, Yui. Oh, wow. Well, I mean, at least you got some plywood information out of it. All right. So do you have any Goonies stories? Goonies stories? I don't know. My dad was in the movie. So I can tell you right where he was at. It's right at the very beginning of the movie, right when the race, the race on the beach, and they have the starting line, and as it's like a helicopter scene, like, you know, they're pulling the camera shot away. If you look right next to the starting line, there's a group of people who are standing there. My dad's one of them, right? My dad's one of those guys. So can't really pick him out. Don't know which one he is, but he was in the movie, so that was pretty cool. What else? Goonies is kind of a funny thing. Everybody here in Astoria, we like the Goonies, like we all like the movie and stuff, and we joke around about it at times. But none of us take it that seriously. Like, there's people out there who are like fans, like fanatics, right? But like, I have never seen Goonies like memorabilia, like swag or anything, like nothing Goonie related in anybody's house that I know personally. Like, I have never seen anybody with anything other than the movie itself. Like, you know, a lot of us own the movie, but that's it. And so, but I don't know. I mean, it's pretty cool because I like watching the movie because I know where all the shots were taken. So it's like, you know, it's cool to see the differences, you know, now comparatively to back when the movie was made. The other good one is Short Circuit. If you guys ever seen Short Circuit, that's a good one. That was filmed here in Astoria, and there's a lot of scenes in that movie that, you know, again, like, you know, the changes that have taken place from, you know, back in the day. So, but as far as that goes, like, that's it. That's, you know, our Goonies. You know, yeah, man, I can't talk. Kindergarten Cop was also filmed here, and Come See the Paradise, and The Ring 2, and Cthulhu. There was a lot of movies filmed here in Astoria. All right. Rents are an example of something that it doesn't seem to come down in price over the long term. Yeah, well, because you have to think about it, like, rents are kind of like, okay, so rents have to meet the capabilities of what is being borrowed in order to purchase the house. Right? So you got to be able to buy the house, pay an interest rate on the money you're borrowing to buy the house, get a rent income from that, have maintenance and all the other stuff, and then have a yield on it that then benefits whoever the investor is, right? Because you really think about it, that's how it ends up going down. Now, there's people who might want to argue about like what it should be, like the way the economy should be. That's not what I'm doing here, right? We got to figure out how it is that the economy is operating so we can make the best decisions for ourselves. And whether we want things to be different or not, it's just the way it is, right? So when we think about like how much an investor has to pay out as far as maintenance, interest rates, down payment, all the taxes, you know, whatever it is that's going out, the rent has to cover all that and be at least some profitable to spark the investor's interest enough to say, yeah, okay, I'll participate in this investment. But if they're not there, right, because rents aren't capable of doing it, well, then they're not going to play the game. But if the rents are doing it, then they're going to play the game. So this is what's going on now. This is one of the reasons why you see rents as expensive as it is because of the abundance of money that has come into the system. When all of a sudden everybody had this flow of money coming in, they could spend money freely, they weren't necessarily too concerned about how much the upgrade to the nicer apartment was going to be. Moving out to the country and having a new flow of money coming into particular areas. Like my area is a good example of it because the rent here is just exploded. And part of the reason is that we've had a lot of new money coming into the system. The area can only support so much population because there's only so many places to live. Now we've had a major increase in the amount of like hospital district that has expanded over the last few years. Very well paying jobs, right? Pretty much people who work at the hospital get paid well. And then we had a lot of remote workers, and the area was already kind of from old money, right? We're like a legacy city, and it's named after John Jacob Astor. So it's like it's always had a lot of like money here. It wasn't always an expensive place to be. It was a working class town at one time. But as this new money has come in, it's driven out the working class people and driven the rents up because of the new money coming in. Those people who come in with that new money can afford the higher rents. So now here, when I remember graduating high school with a job at the lumber yard making just above minimum wage. My wife she was my girlfriend at the time, but my current wife, I mean, we've been together our whole lives, right? So my wife and I, we had our jobs when we graduated high school. She was working at a pizza parlor. I was working at the lumber yard. And between those two jobs, we were able to have an apartment, cars, insurance, do the thing. It sucked. We could barely eat, because we were struggling. But that's not the point. The point is that we could make it, right? That would be very difficult to do here in Astoria today. I mean, I'm not saying it's not possible. It is. I see people do it. But there was a lot of us doing it when I was a kid. I don't see a lot of people doing it today because it's difficult. It's very hard to make that happen. Back in the day it was hard, but you could do it. Now it's like almost impossible. Rents on an apartment, I mean, I'm hearing are like $1,800 for a single room apartment. Now in some areas that might be really cheap if you're talking like San Francisco or New York or someplace that's really expensive like that. But here, I mean, I remember my first apartment was $400, right? $400 for a single room apartment in an apartment complex. Now I'm going for $1,800 or even more. I mean, I hear people are paying like, over $1,000 for a single room in a basement, right? It's just like, it's crazy out there. So, but really, this is the new flow of money that's coming into our area. That's really has done it. And there's no reversing this. Like, even though we have this huge demand for housing here and they put up this huge apartment complex or they start to do one, they all of a sudden production on or oh God, jeez, guys, I gotta slow down. The production of this apartment complex has pretty much come to a halt. There's nobody on site. And now from what I understand, the foundation is not doing well. Like the whole place is sinking or there's some kind of seismic activity going on with this thing, but they're pretty much saying that you can't work on this thing or they ran out of money or something is going on with it, but they are not operating on this building. So here, hundreds of apartments, or I don't know, at least, I don't know how many exactly is there, but it seems like about 100 apartments are not going to come into existence or not for any time soon. So what kind of pressure does this put on all the rest of the rental incomes out there? Right? And increases it even more. So, man, I gotta slow down. I gotta get some water or something. Maybe I'm just tired. I stayed up really late last night. Maybe that's it. Do you think it's prime for a black swan event in the next 3 months? Okay, so what would a black swan event be? Something that nobody is anticipating? I mean, what would that look like? I mean, like, was the SVB bank all of a sudden crashing, like, that issue? Was that, like, a bank run, a black swan event that started to happen? I mean, a lot of times we see these black swan events or think of these black swan events, but then I wonder really how much of this stuff is really coerced into existence or is prepared for ahead of time. So, like, if it was like natural disaster kind of stuff, right, that would be one thing. But here in 3 months, we have what I believe a liquidity issue coming up. I don't know how many people are talking about this. Right? Now, the Federal Reserve is in monetary tightening right now. They're in a monetary tightening position. They are allowing U.S. Treasuries and mortgage-backed securities to roll off their balance sheet, and they are reeling in those liabilities, right? The money that's out there, right? Wait a minute, I should change that. Lord Humongous will be mad. The currency that we are using is being taken back by the Federal Reserve. If they don't roll that over into new treasuries, right, but they take that back, then that's money coming out of circulation. That is monetary tightening taking place. And now, as this begins to happen, I see a lot of people making up excuses as to what's really happening out there. Like, all of a sudden, Argentina is using yuan to try and facilitate trades with China. And even Whirlpool, right, is using yuan. And it's being used as this excuse, like everybody's trying to get out of the dollar. But that's not what's really taking place. What's really taking place is they have a lack of dollars right now available to them in order to do those trades. So that's really what's happening out here, is that the de-dollarization isn't because they are mad at the dollar, right? There's a lot of people who are, and I'm not saying that they aren't doing it and saying they aren't doing it for that reason. I'm not saying that's not happening. But when they are using the excuse, like Argentina, getting into yuan to make purchases and then claiming like they are in a de-dollarization motive, I don't believe that for a second. Not even for a second do I believe that. Right? What I believe is that the dollar tightening around the world is going to start inflicting some serious pain. King Dollar the Destroyer is coming to rule the world. Right? And I'm not trying to say that the dollar is good. I'm not trying to say that at all. In fact, it's probably going to end up being quite painful for us if we can stay on this planet long enough to exist the dollar destruction. Because when it does fall, it's going to be incredibly devastating. It's going to be so painful for the American people to experience a total dollar crash that they won't understand. It'll be chaos. It'll be chaos and rioting and like looting and mass pain, right? Because the people here have no idea on what it is that they are going to do. We have imported everything that we enjoy as far as luxuries into this planet, or off of this planet. We bring it all here to the United States. We do not manufacture a lot for ourselves. I'm not saying that we don't manufacture for ourselves. I'm just saying we don't manufacture enough to sustain our way of life. Okay? And when you have as many guns and you have as many people out there who believe in, freedom from government kind of stuff, then I can't imagine it turning into a really good scenario. But as long as the dollar continues to dominate as the world reserve currency, I don't think we have too much to worry about. Even right now, as the world is feeling the pain, we're sitting over here like, wondering if we're even going to see a recession. Right? I mean, you think about it. What is it when you read these stories? When you read these stories about like China dumping out U.S. treasuries, they will mix in a belief that they are doing it to get out of U.S. treasuries. Like they don't want to hold these U.S. treasuries anymore. Like they're like done with them, done with the United States, piss on them, whatever, right? But that's really not what's happening. China is in need of cash. They needed dollars. And the easiest way to get dollars is to sell U.S. treasuries. Those people are suffering from a lack of manufacturing and exports right now. They're in an incredible amount of pain. How do they get new money coming in? Like that's really where, if you understand like Cantillon effect, right? This is why I follow these 4 economic theories. If you understand Cantillon effect, and how that new money comes into the system, and how China was getting this new money from all the manufacturing that they were doing and exporting to everybody around the world. When they were bringing this new money in, their standard of living was increasing. Well, now what's happened, right? The cost of manufacturing in China is now increased, and they're finding manufacturing moving out of China to Vietnam, to Mexico. Mexico has now become the #1 trade partner with the United States. What does that tell you, right? It tells you that China is peaked out. Well, now how do they get this new money in? They're feeling the pain from it. They got debts themselves that are due in dollars. You know, a lot of people don't realize that, right? China has debts that are due in US dollars, right? And if you got these debts that are coming due and you have items around the world that you need to buy and you need dollars to do it, how do you get those dollars if you're not exporting a bunch of stuff? You better start selling your treasuries right now, access to cash, bang, right? But nobody tells the story that way, right? Everybody tells the story like, oh, you know, they hate the dollar, out done with the dollar. You know, that's not what's really going on. I mean, what's really going on is they're in pain and they need those dollars to ease the pain. And it's, you know, and all it does is just temporarily, you know, do a temporary relief. It's not even that temporary, you know, it's just like it barely does anything at all for them right now. So, you know, what is it like, you know, if you carry this theory even further, right? And we think about it. It's just like, so how is it the United States does fail? Or how is it the United States dollar ceases to become the world reserve currency? Because if we follow Gresham's law, we have to understand that Gresham's law says that bad money chases out good. So if you have two currencies in the system, somebody has a gold coin in their hand and they got a bunch of paper currency in the other hand, and they go to a merchant, the merchant says, well, both of them are good to me. I can, you know, I'll take either one of them. What is the likelihood that people will be like, yeah, I'll get rid of that gold coin. I don't need that thing. I'll hold on to this paper. This is awesome stuff, right? Nobody would think that way. I mean, somebody might, but most people wouldn't, right? I mean, most people would be like, yeah, I'm keeping the gold coin. You can have the paper. Well, that's Gresham's law, because the gold coin is good currency, and the bad currency, the paper, is the one that's going to be out there in circulation. The gold coin's going to get hoarded away. So when we have a bad currency in the system, right, that is driving out the good currency, this is exactly how the United States dollar was able to dominate gold as a world reserve currency, because they were considered the same thing at one time. See, people didn't look at the dollar as being a bad currency or a good currency. They saw it as an equal. They thought it was the same thing as gold, because it was a gold standard. So many dollars for so much gold, and it was fixed, and people knew it, right? And because it was fixed and people knew it, they didn't hold the gold, they hold the dollars, because dollars were so much easier to transact with. And so as the availability of dollars was given to the world, given, right? What it was the United States was able to freely spend these dollars with people because they were accepting them as if it was gold. They had that same relationship. Well, all of a sudden people realized, whoa, wait a minute, we have two currencies here promising to be the same thing, but they're not the same thing, and there's way too much of this paper currency to back, you know, no, wait, this isn't going to work, right? So people started cashing in their dollars for the gold, right? So this is the bad money chasing out the gold. They started taking the gold, they were going to hoard it away. The bad money, the dollars, started chasing out the good currency. And that's exactly what was taking place. The dollar itself only became in demand because it was providing the liquidity that gold couldn't do. Right? I mean, you only have a fixed amount of gold, and there's all these people out there who have all this stuff that they produce and services. They have all this stuff that they want to do and sell and trade and make and do whatever, but there's only so much gold to facilitate the trades. But here introduces the dollar saying, hey, we're just as good as gold, right? Use us. So everybody's like, yeah, sure, why not, man? All of a sudden, boom, we're making trades, man. I'm selling carrots, I'm selling art, I'm selling services, I'm selling everything I got, right? And it's easy to do because we got this liquidity happening with all these dollars out there. And one day when they figured it out, and the United States was just like, no, sorry, we're not giving you the gold. We're going to keep it. But you can keep using the dollar. And they were like, well, what's going to back it? And it was just like, I don't know, debt. You know, we promise. I mean, more promises? I don't know. Like, there's nothing there. Here, more debt. U.S. Treasuries. We'll back it with U.S. Treasuries. How about that? Right? The faith that the United States government will take men with guns and go and rob the people of their hard-earned possessions if they don't if they don't pay their taxes. That's what the United States promises to do, right? Or and anybody else around the world actually. But yeah, they have men with guns come and take everything if you don't follow their way. So that's what backs the dollar now, right? Is threats, and they're not credible threats. I mean, they're actual threats, because they don't. It's not like some kind of warning or anything going on out there. It happens to everybody every day. So anyway, I don't know. I probably should have carried that on a little better. Let's move on. How many people we got watching? 130? Nice. 130 with 101 likes. Okay, go try some of the high-rated French restaurants in Vegas. Sounds fun. My 19-year-old son is homeless and has been told he's overqualified at 2 household name companies in the neighborhood he grew up in. I'm homeless as well and can't find work either. So I'm curious on how it is that you can be homeless and not find work. Overqualified, don't tell them your skills. Right? Go get a job at McDonald's. Right? I understand working at McDonald's probably isn't the most, funnest thing to follow your passion by, but I don't know. Might get you into cooking and starting a culinary career or something. I don't know. But I have a hard time believing that people can't find work. I have a hard time believing that people can't figure out a way to earn money. It flies around everywhere, and it's very difficult at times to see it. Because this is really what it comes down to, understanding energy levels, right? Just like anything out there, right? If you have a negative energy, a negative thought, a negative belief, a belief of lack, a belief that money doesn't approach you, a belief that money runs from you, that everything you do, every time you try as hard as you can and it still is unsuccessful, it's because of the energy levels that you're putting into it, right? Money is the byproduct of effort, of your efforts. It comes to you when you provide something to the world, right? That's how it comes. If you're not providing something to the world, then the money isn't going to come, right? And it's not like you need to provide something for the world with the thought, I need to provide something for the world in order to make money. You just need to provide something for the world by just naturally just doing it. Whether it's creating art, creating a service, creating a product, whatever, man. Everybody has something in them, right? And by doing that, then you can find that money starts to approach you. You don't even have to go anywhere for it. It starts to come to you. You have to put in intent and attention, right, towards it. But if you just don't give it any importance, money is not the important part of things. The feeling and the life that you can live from having money is, right? It's not really what the money is, it's what the money can do, right? It's like the feelings that you have from having this money. Oh, I can go travel, or I can have the security, or I can have all this stuff from it. But it's not the money itself that's really doing it. It's the abilities, right? It's the experiences. It's the other stuff, right? Money is just simply the byproduct that makes it all happen. And it comes from the energy that you put out of something that you're trying to provide to the world, no matter what it really is. And then not the pursuit of it. Don't give it the importance. It's like chasing anything out there. If you chase anything, you are going to put a wanting, negative, needy energy towards it that is going to be repulsive. And it's going to run from you. And that's the reason why a lot of people say, I can't find it, I can't do it, I try as hard as I can, I keep, And it's just because you put too much importance, too much effort into this, and instead of just doing it for the love and the sake of making it happen, right, just for the enjoyment of it, and just let everything just naturally find its way. That's how it's done. It's funny because sometimes I wonder, it was just man, why don't I chase the money? right? I get offers all the time to do sponsorships. I turn them down. I turn a lot of them down. And I'm thinking, man, I could have made a lot of money doing those. Like, so much money. I could probably not have to work or do anything else now if I had taken all the sponsorships that were ever offered to me. I mean, holy moly, right? I don't think that would have been well for the channel, but still, I mean, it was like the opportunity was right there. It's like, here you go. But every time I took one of these sponsorships, it made me feel like terrible. Like, I didn't like the content. I didn't like the feeling I got from it. It was just like everything about it just felt very negative to me. Like, I wasn't enjoying it. It didn't feel like I was being like, following my creative passion or something. I was just it didn't feel right to me. And so I got to thinking about it. It was just like, but what are you doing? Why are you doing this? Why are you making all these videos? Why are you trying to, to make all this stuff happen? Money out. But then I had to realize something else, is that I never really did have a plan to make money with this. When it did start making money, I thought I did have a plan. I had a plan to earn $100. Right, that was my plan to earn money off of Google, off of doing YouTube. Was a $100, because that's the threshold in order to get paid. So I just wanted to achieve that threshold. But that was my entire goal for making money on YouTube. But after it started making money, I changed my thought on it. I was just like, man, wouldn't it be cool to have a regular life, a job, have this side income that made your life to the point where you didn't ever have to stress about paying bills or, something coming up, like a medical bill or something coming up, where you had a life where you didn't have to worry about any of that stuff ever. You weren't ever good, like, and not to say you weren't, but you're not necessarily rich, like rich in the sense that you got a ton of money sitting in the bank or something like that, but you have a life in which that abundance is just there, right? And it's not like a grand abundance. Like, I don't sit here and live some kind of life of luxury or something like that, right? I drive an old Explorer around, a 99 Toyota Corolla. I don't, I live in a fairly modest house, there's nothing fancy or luxurious about my house. And so, but yet I have plenty of food, and the bills are paid, and, I got, some money in the bank, and, got chickens out in the yard, and just having a lot of fun, just living life. I think I did it, man. That was my goal, was exactly this, to get this, to have this. I achieved it. Like, no wonder why I'm not making a ton of money. I wasn't trying to go to make a ton of money, was I? I was just trying to make a life for myself and my family, one that didn't have stresses, One of the things that I promised my wife, as this thing was taking off and I started making the money, and, I was like, hey, the bills are always paid. We never have to worry about bills. You never have to, anytime you need gas, just fill up the gas tank. Don't worry about it. It'll always be in the checking account. And, she came to me and she said, one of the nicest things that I like right now is that for the first time, I don't count the basket of groceries. Like, she used to keep track, like, as every item went into the basket, she would keep track of how much she was putting in there, and knew exactly how much, like, right down, or pretty close, right down to the dollar of how much was in the basket before she went to the to check out. And she says she doesn't do that anymore, and she's still a really, really good shopper. So it's just like, even though she doesn't do it, it was like, it's just something that she doesn't do in her head. The basket is still the same stuff. Like, that didn't change, right? But she doesn't do that anymore, and she thanked me for that, right? She says, that's one of the nicest things right now. And I told her, I said, you will never have to worry about that. Don't ever worry about how much that basket will cost, right? It'll always be there. And that feeling right there is better than anything else, right? I mean, I can imagine having millions of dollars and all kinds of assets and doing all kinds of stuff where I feel like, I'm just like overflowing in this wealth or something like that. But I feel like I got abundance now. Like, this is awesome. I'm not saying that I don't work that hard for it, but I don't really work that hard for it, right? I mean, I do my day job, which is kind of, it's stressful at times. I got to show up there every day. It's retail, which sucks, But when you don't necessarily have to do that job, you get to do the job, it makes a difference. It's like, all of a sudden it doesn't feel as overwhelming at times, It's just like, you're just saying, well, it's just a day, at the end of the day it'll be over and I'll move on with, whatever it is that I want to do, go do YouTube stuff. That's how, and that's how I feel nowadays. Yeah, I'm going to go check out these super chats. Thank you guys for sending those. That's awesome. Whoa, look at all these comments. Oh my gosh, guys. Okay, there they are. Hey, the infamous NYC. Is that the first one? Oh, no, here, I'm sorry. I'll go back to the infamous NYC again. All right, for the $2. Simon, chase the money so you can help people. I will. When I figure it out, I'm going to figure out a way in which that I feel good about doing sponsorships. Like, I felt pretty good about taking the... I didn't do it, but I would have done it. I felt pretty good about taking the sponsorship from like ITM Trading because Lynette's my friend, and I mean anybody who wants to get into gold and silver, call ITM Trading. I mean you can tell them the Uneducated Economist sent you. I mean, but it's no worry about it. I'm not being sponsored by them or anything else like that. We came that close. I was going to do it, but I just didn't feel good about it, right? And I feel good about, helping my friend's business out. So I'm totally good about pushing ITM Trading, like saying, hey, go do it. But I don't necessarily need to get paid to do that because I'm doing it as a friend, as a friend for my, to Lynette and her company. And I'm a customer of hers, right? I mean, I own pieces of gold and silver that have come from Lynette's business. So yeah, I mean, that was one of the sponsorships I would have taken. But again, I just wasn't feeling good about it at the time. I had done a different sponsorship that really, it didn't have anything to do with ITM. I did a different sponsorship, and that made me feel terrible, again, because of the video content and the way, the video came across and stuff like that. I mean, it was still me and still honest and stuff, but it's not one that I would have made, It's not like, anyway, you guys get it. But I understand, going for the money. Okay. Infamous NYC, $5. Thank you so much. Money is just another tool, brother. If you don't have tools, you can't do much. It's just a tool. Don't love it. Don't be shamed using and having it. No, and that's the other thing. That's true. It's such a weird statement to think because people in their minds know exactly what they would do with the money. Like if they won the lottery or something like that, they have all these things. It's way different when all of a sudden it happens. Like the YouTube channel was quite unexpected. I mean, it started moving, but when lumber took off and people were coming to the channel to seek out lumber information, and I was getting 20, 30, 40,000 views minimum, 80,000 views on a video. I mean, gee whiz, it's like those things pay out, right? And I did quite well. I paid off all my debts. I paid off student loans from my family. I saved a cat. Medical bill, the vet bills. I paid off a bunch of medical bills. Like I said, I did a bunch of stuff with this money and put the money down on a house, right? So, and that all happened in a short amount of time. Boom! It was to me, I look back on it and it was God, it happened so fast. Within 2 years, it was I went from dead ass broke, just got out of debt, had no money. I mean, there's a video here on my channel of me going down to the bank with $3,000 cash, paying off my credit cards, and at that point, I had maybe $1,000. I don't think I had that much money at the time. And I mean, within 2 years, I believe, of that video, I was buying a house. I mean, putting a lot of money down on a house, an insane amount of it, and had done all this stuff. It was just it was insane. And I wasn't chasing the money at all. I wasn't pursuing none of that. It was just simply because the YouTube channel was taking off and everybody was going after that lumber information. I happened to be right in the thick of it, talking about lumber every week before the shortages kicked in. It was almost perfect timing for it. But I'll figure it out. Joshua Bits, thank you very much for the $5, man. Hey, hi Simon. If Bitcoin is digital gold, does that make Ethereum digital silver? What are your thoughts? I am not as... Okay, so I'm going to give you my thoughts on cryptocurrencies, because right now there's so many more people who have so much better information when it comes to cryptocurrencies. Stat Pulse, right? Go check out Patrick's channel, right? I left a link down in the description. We had an awesome talking about what we're going to do over here at Stock Pulse Silver Symposium. Go check out his channel. Do me a favor, go and subscribe to his channel. Like, he has great information, right? And I'm gonna go and hang out with him for next weekend for a couple of days, and I'm really looking forward to it. Now, as far as what I feel about Bitcoin, right? In my opinion, Bitcoin is it. There's nothing else other than Bitcoin. There's really nothing out there that is doing something that Bitcoin can't do or isn't going to be able to do at some point here in the future. Whether it's through secondary layer systems or whatever, Bitcoin is ultimately it. Everything else is just like a secondary idea, right, to Bitcoin. So I don't really see anything else out there that can do it. To me, I like Litecoin as the silver aspect to gold, just because I think its popularity amongst the Bitcoin community is pretty much put it in that standing. I also like Charlie Lee. I like the things that he says. I like the idea that he works on his coin, on Litecoin. I think that, he really understands and appreciates what Bitcoin is offering, and so therefore he's not trying to find something that competes with Bitcoin like a lot of these other guys are doing, or these other cryptocurrencies are doing, but try to find something that complements Bitcoin. And that's really where I find like Bitcoin is it, and everything else is just kind of like a secondary to it. As far as Bitcoin becoming like a world reserve currency for doing transactions or something like that, I don't think that's necessarily going to happen. Like, if there is a complete and utter collapse of the dollar, then okay, I can see where Bitcoin might step in and start filling the roles for it, especially if you had a secondary layer. If you had a system in which that the transactions could move faster, you can incorporate more transactions into the Bitcoin protocol. If there was a way to do that so that there was no limitations on how the speed in which that you could use it, then if the dollar failed, then I could see where Bitcoin could step in and fill that role, right, as a world reserve currency. The only problem with that is that you're going to find where there's going to be a concentration of wealth that begins to happen to the most industrious nations out there. Because those who are able to produce the most, to produce and save, they are going to export their items, import Bitcoin, and save it, denying the rest of the world the ability to have the Bitcoin. Now, this is what I find it interesting, is that is a deflationary aspect of Bitcoin. So the longer you hold on to it, the more you can purchase with it. And this is where Patrick was trying to explain and trying to push his website, showing items priced in Satoshis, which is a breakdown of Bitcoin, all right? Showing it and how it is that over time that it takes ever decreasing amounts of Satoshis or Bitcoin in order to buy items, because the more it's distributed, the less there is to go around. Now, what I find interesting is that it doesn't slow the liquidity idea of it, because you can continue, as many decimals or as far right to the decimal as you want to go. Right? So like with gold, there's a limitation. Only so much gold out there to facilitate all the transactions that are happening. Right? But if you have Bitcoin, you can have people hoarding Bitcoin, but it doesn't slow Bitcoin down. What it does is it shrinks the amount of Bitcoin that you can charge for the items that you have out there, right? So it's over time, it's deflationary. And that's really where I believe that a lot of other problems can exist from it, right? Is that the longer, I mean, it's also awesome. I mean, it's awesome in a lot of ways that if you're the one who's holding on to it, right? But if you say like maybe purchased items that you had intend on selling, like you intend on selling this asset into the future, you may find that assets devalue over time because there's less Bitcoin available to purchase that with. You see where I'm kind of getting at? Because that liquidity is not liquidity shrinking because liquidity is still available. It's just the amount of Bitcoin, the price that you can charge would begin to shrink as people are hoarding that Bitcoin. Anyhow, just another one of my thoughts. Wow, another. Hey, Infamous NYC, thank you so much for that $20. So cool. All right, people misquote the Bible. I'd imagine I'd be one of those people because I really don't know much about the Bible. I would have to get my wife out here and say, okay, explain this to me, All right. Misquote the Bible when it says the love of money is the root of evil. So many feel bad acquiring it, yet Jesus spoke often about build wealth, and so did King Solomon. Everything on earth is here for us. Yeah, okay, yeah, that's right. I was going to talk about that. Thank you, Infamous NYC. Thank you very much for the $20. I really appreciate the support. But that's something that happened to me. Like, after I got into the house and stuff, like, I wasn't sure on how to handle the money. Like, people know exactly what they would do with the money, right? But, like, I wasn't sure what to do. Like, I was buying stocks, I'd buy some silver, I like investing in. I'm doing stuff that I thought was appropriate with it. But one of the things that I thought was like, you don't do things for the family. Like, you never did things for the family when you were a broke ass, right? So now you got some money, why don't you do some things for the family? And so, like, spending money going to like museums or going to the zoo and taking them on these trips, during the summer, we were traveling and going to these different places to go visit, these museums in different museums and zoos and aquariums and stuff like that around different parts of Oregon. You're going off and you're going out to the restaurants and you're checking out other sites and buying souvenirs or doing whatever. And that's something that I never had done before, and it felt so uncomfortable doing that. Like, it felt very difficult. Not difficult. Felt difficult to have fun. Like, I wanted to do it. Like, I wanted to enjoy the experience of it, but I had a hard time with it. Like, I felt somehow that I was deteriorating or taking away from my efforts by going and enjoying some of the things that I was doing. Like, enjoying some of the success of it. And it was weird. It's this weird mental issue that I noticed that I had. And I was like, man, where did that come from? Like, is it from being a broke ass for so long? And like just not understanding and just being in this this different energy, this different feeling of being able to do it and then not knowing how to enjoy it. It's strange. Like, it was almost like this guilty feeling. Like, I would go to work and I would listen to like the struggles of some of the coworkers, talking about, whatever medical bills coming up or, car breakdowns or something, all the issues that I had, that I had. And, and I felt guilty about that. It was just like, man, how is it that I was able to break free from that, do I deserve this? Do I deserve that? Like, what is this? I was like, what is this that I'm sitting in, And that right there, it's strange. Like, it's taken me a while. I mean, I'm starting to feel more comfortable with because the longer you feel that way, or the longer you experience something, the more comfortable it becomes, the more normal it is. So, again, like, I don't make insane amount of money doing YouTube. I mean, you can probably figure it out. You can probably figure it out how much I make, but it's decent. And it's a nice chunk of change to have every month to come in, especially to supplement some of the bills and to be able to finally think, oh man, I can actually put away for a retirement. Didn't think I would ever have something like that in my life, my oldest boy's getting braces soon. It's nice to know that it was just like, okay, well, that's, not something that's going to, like, completely stress me out and think that I have to make these payments on this for the rest of my life or something. So, these changes to my life are like, it's amazing. Like, I mean, all these things are happening, and then I think to myself, it was just like, man, this is what you were looking for, man. It was just like, so what more are you needing? And so I do have to take on a different mindset about it. And just like that, it's just like, okay, so earn abundance that you can use to help people with. And that'll be my plan. I mean, I think that's kind of what my goal is with the channel anyway, was to try and, figure out what macroeconomics is to me personally, and then to share that with people in a way that they can figure out what macroeconomics is to them, because every one of us is going to look at it differently for ourselves. And that's ultimately what I'm trying to do here, right? Thank you so much, man. That is so awesome. All right. Hey UE, hope all is well. Gold is about to take a huge dump. Look at the future contracts. Yeah, I will. I haven't really been paying much attention to gold lately, but I would believe that. I think here in 3 months we are going to be facing a liquidity crisis. I mean, I can't explain it to any other extent than there has been warnings coming from the Federal Reserve to the big banks to make sure that their assets are sitting very close to cash, right? Meaning that they can liquidate them very quickly. So don't be holding risky assets or something that, if there's all of a sudden an issue with liquidity, meaning people aren't really buying and selling or trading, and they're sitting on a bunch of these assets, these, corporate debt or whatever that is not going to be easily sold. They're saying to get out of those things now, right? They're saying, like, or not necessarily to get out, but to have a majority of their balance sheet sitting closer to cash. So that leads me to believe, like, I mean, just by saying that they are expecting a tightening of the liquidity coming into the future, which they're doing anyway. I mean, the Federal Reserve is in quantitative tightening. That's exactly what it is liquidity tightening. So at some point we'll feel the effects of it, and that's really where you see like the drawdown in the repo and stuff like that happening. I mean, it's because people are, wondering where the money's going. And that's what's happening, is the Federal Reserve is reeling in a lot of that cash, or a lot of the liabilities. So one of the other things that I've talked about a lot on this channel, and I still have not seen a lot of people talking about it, and even the big news outlets don't seem to be talking about it. And I haven't seen any drawing of the statement coming from the Treasury from months ago, talking about how they're going to be doing bond buybacks at the beginning of 2024. And I'm like, am I the only one who heard that or remembers it or thinks about that? Like, incorporates that into like what's happening here? Because everybody was just like, oh my gosh, look at how much debt the United States Treasury is issuing out right now, and they're sitting on all this money, right? They've swelled up the Treasury General account because they're going to need the cash in order to buy the bonds back when there's a liquidity issue taking place here at the beginning of the year. So as people are trying to find cash themselves, right? So let's think about what a liquidity issue is. All of a sudden, there's not enough cash in the system, right? And now, it's hard to imagine that when we just went through all this money printing and all this stuff that's going on. But if you imagine that there is a demand for cash that is far exceeding what is happening here in the United States. There is the demand for cash outside of the United States that is, who knows how big? They don't even know. Like, it's immense, right? And so it's the shadow, it's a shadow currency system that that exists outside. Now, these debts that are written in dollars, that are due in dollars, that are written outside of the United States, that don't have anything to do with the United States, has pressure on the demand for dollar. So as these debts come due, people are going to be scrambling for dollars in order to pay those debts off. Because unless those debts are rolled over into new debts that are due in dollars, those debts have to, in order to extinguish them, right? Which is going to put a demand on dollars. The moment that contract is extinguished and not rolled over into a new debt, but literally disappears, then that also puts pressure on the dollar because that debt itself was being used as if it was dollars. So dollars were being used as dollars and contracts were being used as if it was dollars. So now the demand for dollars to pay off the contract is going up, and then when the contract disappears, the demand goes even higher because the pressure on the dollar continues to increase. At the same time, the Federal Reserve is reeling in their dollars, their liabilities, right, going through quantitative tightening. So when people start looking for cash in order to pay their debts, all these contracts that are due in dollars, they're going to start looking to maybe cash in treasuries, right? Because treasuries are the fastest way to get to dollars because it's the most liquid market in the entire world, right? When people want to sell a treasury, boom, it sells right now, no question asked, right? Anybody can do it. It's, if you got a Treasury General account, everybody has access to it, right? Everybody knows this. Not every market is as liquid, even comes remotely close to being as liquid as the U.S. Treasury does. So if there is a blip in that, where all of a sudden there's a part in the U.S. Treasury yield curve, where somewhere like, a 20-year Treasury all of a sudden can't find a buyer, somebody's trying to sell them, and there's no buyer out there, and the price starts to fall and the yield starts to rise, that's a liquidity issue within the Treasury market that the Treasury is not going to deal with. Or no, they are going to deal with it. They're not going to accept it, I guess is what I'm going to say. Is that they're not going to accept that there is nobody out there buying that bond. They will step in and buy that bond back themselves. They are going to be providing a form. Now, it's not quantitative easing, but it's going to have an impact similar to that of quantitative easing, except that it won't be from the Fed's money printing. It is going to be coming from the fact that they have sat on this cash looking to provide the liquidity to the Treasury market during this liquidity issue that is coming in 2024. Or I'm guessing sometime in 2024 by their own statements. I wouldn't know from anything else other than that's what they are saying, from their own statements and from the Federal Reserve looking at these banks saying, hey, you better get your stuff, get your stuff close to cash, right? So anyway, that's kind of what I see coming. Government electronic coin is coming, so the IRS can and will track their taxes. Yeah, and that's okay. So when we think about something that is going to replace the dollar, I know it's not going to be gold. I know it won't. Not unless there's a complete and utter collapse of the dollar. Then I'll accept it. I'll be like, okay, yeah, we can go with gold. Because, it's going to take good money that comes in and chases out the bad, but a bad has to be completely collapsed, worthless. Nobody wants it at all. And then a good currency can come in. That's called Thayer's Law. You can look it up. It's the Gresham's Law when bad money chases out good. And Thayer's Law is when good money chases out bad. But in order for good money to chase out bad, the bad money has to be completely worthless. And then nobody would accept it, not the merchants, not anybody. And then only good currency would exist, right? So unless the dollar completely collapses, there is no currency that's going to come in and replace the dollar, right? It can't work like that, right? It has to come in a symbiotic relationship with the dollar, right? Meaning that they have to share the benefit of each other being there. That's how the dollar and gold existed together as a world reserve currency, is because people had a fixed amount of dollars to the gold that was existent out there, right? So same thing, if you have dollars out there and you have stablecoin, right? A representation of a dollar out there, it's not a dollar, right? It's a digital token that represents a dollar, right? So a dollar can sit out there in a bank account somewhere, right, so to speak, and this token can represent the dollar. So now we got two currencies in the system that have a relationship to each other. That is, one is the other, doesn't matter. Just like dollars had a relationship to gold, it didn't matter. If you had a set amount of dollars, there was a fixed amount of gold coming with that. Right? So same thing with stable coins. So this is really how I believe that the relationship between the digital aspect and the traditional cash paper currency system is going to find its meat, right? That's how it's going to mate together. Over time, you will only have the digital representation, as the physical will eventually be depleted out of circulation. Nobody will use it, right? And then you'll have a new currency, right? And that way, people pretty much didn't even know it took place. Now, it will get to a point that people will recognize, whoa, cash is leaving the system. And the demand for cash is going to go up, which is going to start creating a premium to have cash purchases. But the powers that be already know this, right? And we talked about this in a discussion from the IMF from like 5 years ago, talking about, how they were going to go to a cashless society. They're going to put a burden on cash, charge you a deposit fee or withdrawal fee, and therefore, like, the idea of hoarding cash would then become a burden, not conducive to getting a premium, and nobody would do it. They would just put it all back into the digital form of it and back again into the new currency. And now, whether that ends up being central bank digital currencies or something else, that's kind of what I see happening right now. The Federal Reserve talks a lot about stablecoins. They don't talk a lot about XRP. I've never heard them say anything about XRP, ever, right? So when people are like, oh no, Ripple, 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 and I'm like, okay, I mean, it could happen. I mean, I'm not saying it's not going to happen. There's plenty of people out there who provide evidence to say, man, this is what's happening out there. I saw nothing, coming from the Federal Reserve yet. I have found where suggestions, right, to the Federal Reserve on what it is that Ripple can do has been brought up, but nothing within like, hey, this is a form of what we are going to use to do trade transactions between nations or banks or anything else. I have yet to find that anywhere. So, I mean, I'm not saying it's not happening. What I'm saying is just like, I'm not taking that into my theories yet because I haven't seen it. Right? Until then, it's just like other people's beliefs that's making that occur. Just like, anything else, like the BRICS nations, using a gold-backed currency. I want to see it. Right? I want to see a gold-backed currency. I want to see a BRICS gold-backed currency. I want to see what it looks like. I want to see a picture of one or something. Okay? Because until that actually happens, I don't believe it. I don't take it into my theories. I don't take it into my concepts. Nothing. Like, I mean, as far as I'm concerned, it's complete imagination. Right? I mean, it's like delusional, Now, even if they did come up with a gold-backed currency, I know it would immediately get hoarded, and this because Gresham's law has already stated that it would, and you would end up being stuck with the bad currency, which would be the U.S. dollar anyway. So, and we're gonna find this. I mean, It's funny because as the dollar is growing stronger right now, and this is what I mean, and it's something that I have been talking about for quite some time. I mean, the dollar index is at 105 right now. It's actually quite higher than anybody would have ever given it credit for, and I think it's going to go much higher from here. It's going to be very painful to see it move up there. And the belief that there was going to be like a hyperinflation scenario coming from the dollar. I mean, I don't see that taking place. Like, I mean, it could. I'm not saying that it's not going to happen, but I don't see that taking place. What I see is dollar contracts disappearing, putting ever increasing amounts of pressure on the dollar, putting it upward, not downward, but upward, right? Now, if we did ever achieve a situation in which that people did start to abandon the dollar, like truly abandon it, meaning they had another currency they could actually use to do trade, then you might find where dollars will come flying back to the United States. But in that sense, what are they going to do? Right? They're going to buy what? Stuff that's denominated in dollars. You're going to buy U.S. stocks. You're going to buy, what are you going to buy? What are you going to buy? Right? You're going to buy stuff that ends up being denominated in dollars. You're going to want to buy stuff from the United States. And so even if we did have a situation in which that people are moving towards a direction in which they find another currency to use, which would be very unlikely, right? But they did want to send those dollars back to the United States, they're going to end up purchasing stuff from us, right? And buying our stuff is meaning that we're manufacturing and distribution stuff is like our exports, our agricultural exports, things like that. Those things are going to start ramping up. Like, I mean, I'm sure like foreigners could end up buying like our farmlands and our manufacturing and all that other stuff. I mean, they could end up buying all those things here, and then that would create its own issues. But all I guess I'm getting at is that, the idea that you're going to have a hyperinflation scenario, that's how it would end up going down, right? Is that you would have to have a replacement currency coming in, one that doesn't compete with the dollar, but actually is a complementary to the dollar, and then eventually driving the dollar out somehow, because the dollar would end up being the good currency, and the bad currency drives out the good currency. You see how complicated this ends up getting? Like, how do you do that, right? That's why I'm saying if you had a digital component, a stable coin, boom, easy, just like that, right? It's not a competition. People think it's a dollar. They feel like it's a dollar, but it's not. It's a token that represents a dollar, much like dollars were tokens that represented gold. Same thing. All right, man, 130 of you with 132 likes. I love it, man. I love it when I have more likes than people watching. That's so cool. All right, if the dollar failed, there would be no infrastructure for Bitcoin. Well, yeah, but the dollar failing, that's a huge if, right? I mean, that's like a huge if. I don't see where the dollar's failing. I mean, I do see where nations, it's obvious that nations are trying to do something outside the dollar. I mean, that is obviously taking place. But they're doing it because the liquidity of the dollar is, like, to me, this is more of working within the Federal Reserve's favor to have the BRICS nations actually try to do trades outside of the dollar. Because of the demand for the dollars, it actually pisses the Federal Reserve off in a way that there's like, man, there's all this demand for dollars. You realize all this demand for dollars makes it very difficult for the United States to continue to go deeper into debt, which is totally unsustainable, so that we can provide the world with these dollars. Right? I mean, that's really because they've said it plenty of times. The United States is on an unsustainable debt. They can't continue to do this. Right? And we can't keep providing the world with the liquidity by buying up the United States treasuries in order to provide the world with liquidity. You better find some other way of doing this. Right? And that's really, like, I believe, what the Federal Reserve is truly looking for. Because they know that they're going to totally crash the system. If they do, then nobody's going to trust the dollar, right? I mean, it's... You can't even find... I mean, even if they wanted to, they're going to find incredible pressure to do trades outside of the dollar. I mean, just look at what's going on with the rupees in Moscow, right? With Russia. I mean, Russia's sitting on all these Indian rupees and have no idea what it is that they're going to do with them, because nobody else in the world really wants rupees, right? And I mean, there's people who make these comments. They say, well, they could just find other nations that they do want stuff from that will be willing to trade with India, and just kind of like try to find these cross deals that nobody really knows where and who and what or why. When the dollar was like, yeah, no problem, boom, liquidity, right now. Everybody does trades. Okay? There's no other currency that does that. And when you have these BRICS nations going, oh, let's screw around with our own currencies, and like all of a sudden, boom, Moscow's going, what are we going to do? We got all these rupees. Now we sold you a bunch of cheap oil. You took our cheap oil, India. You went and refined that oil, sold it off to the rest of the world. Now we're sitting on rupees we can't use. How is this benefiting Moscow? How does this benefit Russia? Right? Like, it doesn't. So now India is over there going, oh God, man, I guess we got to figure out something to do. Well, what if we find a place for you to invest those rupees back with India? You know, and it was just like, you mean we can't use them for whatever the hell we want? We have to invest them with you? Like, what if we don't like your investments? You know, I mean, like, you would think, like, with my money, I want to be able to do whatever the hell I want with it. Right? Be able to buy whatever I want with it. Not like, oh, I guess we could figure out something to do with your dollar, with your rupees or whatever. That's really what it goes down to. And other nations would face the exact same deal. Okay? The only reason why it works out so well with China is because China has so much stuff to buy. And they're willing to buy so much stuff, right? Because they're reaching out on their higher standard of living as well. So their people are moving into luxuries, which is actually causing the problem of the separation between the rich and the poor. And you're going to find that, you know, as the manufacturing continues to leave China, they're going to get really pissed because they're not going to have a whole lot of money coming in. And if you don't have new money coming in, you're going to start doing stuff about that. I don't know, fighting wars or trying to be the debt issuer of the world or something like the United States was. It's going to be tough. There's going to be tough times for them. All right. I've been listening, just got done bottling grape juice. I picked a ton of grapes today, taking a break before I do the elderberry. Picked a bunch of them too. Right on, man. Good times. We went and picked a bunch of blackberries a while ago. Okay, that's all we did. We didn't do any other berries. Bitcoin is the future. They will embellish the notes. Litecoin is great because it's cheap and fast to send. It's the mindset, not the physical money. That's right. I mean, again, like, that's the one thing that I'm learning a lot about, like, just about everything in life, you know? And it doesn't really matter what it is. It's the energy that you are putting into it. It is literally the thoughts and the feelings that you have as you are pursuing the things that you are doing, right? And it's so odd because it sounds like, you know, some kind of magical thing that's taking place, but it isn't. It's just, it's literally the feelings and the energy that you are emitting, you know, putting out there to the world, and the reflection that people are giving back on that. You know, if you, it's funny. Some of the levels, like when I got to 100,000 subscribers on the YouTube channel, I was really excited about it. But it wasn't so exciting that, like, it was like, boom, yeah, look at it, just happened, you know? It was more like, right on, did it, you know? That's the kind of exciting it was. It was like, for me, it was like one of those goals that I had achieved. And now my next goal is like 250,000. So it's like a long ways away. I mean, I got a long ways to go before I achieve my next subscriber goal. And, you know, and you guys know who follow this channel that I rarely ever ask for subscriptions to the channel. Like, rarely do I do that. If anything, I ask for people to subscribe to other people's channel, like, you know, Patrick's channel. And for me, it's like really understanding that it is about that journey that you're on. It's so loud. The rain is so loud. All right. But for me, it's more about that journey that you're on, right? If you are enjoying that, then everything around you is going to experience that same fun and excitement that you are having about the journey that you are on. Now, if you are stressing about making money, it's like people are going to be stressed about that too. People feel what you feel, and it's a reflection of what it is that you're feeling. So if you are worried about money running from you, it's going to run from you. That's exactly what's going to happen. And just like the feelings that I was having, I don't know if I can do this with this rain. It is so loud. Can you hear me? Can you even hear me talking? If you own Bitcoin, you don't have to give anything to Satoshi. It's not Caesar's. What's happening, Patrick? Man, it's good to see you. Oh, thank you very much for the $4.99, bro. Caution, Ether today is not the same Ether as last year after proof of stake. See, now, here's somebody who really knows what they're talking about when it comes to cryptocurrencies. Like, you know, I mean, I kind of understand some ideas on what I feel like the digital currencies are going to be to the central bank digital currencies, like stuff like that, stable coins. I have my theories on those. I kind of understand them enough so that I can incorporate them into what it is that I feel that they're going to do for my theories. But as far as like the insides workings of how, like, I'm not a computer guy. Like, I don't understand any of that tech stuff. I mean, I don't understand how, like, smart contracts work, but I understand, like, what a smart contract does. Like, and by having smart contracts, like, I think this is probably could be like one of the real game changers going into the future if they really start to become prevalent within the economy. Because smart contracts are going to go through regardless, right? You know, I mean, the easiest way to, like, for me, I guess, you know, maybe Patrick could actually answer this question a lot better, but to me, like, the easiest way to understand a smart contract is if you had an idea about the horse race, right? If this horse wins, this person gets paid. If that horse wins, that person gets paid, right? Boom, the contract is made and then set out there into the blockchain, right? And now a certain outcome takes place, right? The race has a winner. Once that outcome has taken place, the contract goes through, right? So that person gets paid. If you can imagine this on a grand scale, like on a huge scale, well, it would eliminate the need for a lot of like contract disputes. Like you wouldn't have to take somebody to court saying, hey, they didn't fulfill the contract. The contract would go through no matter what, one way or the other. Like the clause would be built right into it that if this didn't happen or whatever occurrence, and the outcome is already set into motion. Like there is no judgment needed. That, to me, is just like so brilliant. Like to me, this was like, oh man, because that could totally eliminate the need for governments and courts and lawyers and all that crap, right? And all of a sudden, we can start dealing with each other in a contractual basis that then excludes anybody else out there, right? I bet you all-nighter could really talk up on this, right? On what it could do. All right. Money is not real, day trade. I understand when the grid is down, where's your digital wallet? Well, that's like, I don't know, what are you going to do with your debit card or your bank account if the internet goes down? I mean, all that stuff is all tied together, right? So, I mean, if you had cash and coins, well, then, you got a barter system, but I got that, and, there's other things I can barter with. So back to the barter system, right? Because that's what you would be considering. Cash would be somewhat okay, I think, to a few, but in an all-out collapse like that, I think cash would find, and I think it would find its use and its purpose, but I think real useful items would be much more, prevalent within that economy. All right. Infamous NYC. Bitcoin is the most godly type of money ever created. No way to manipulate an equal scale of measurement, not corruptible by sinful men. Yeah, and I agree with that. And that's the reason why I do see the benefits. Like, I own Bitcoin. Like, I mean, I talk a little differently about Bitcoin in comparison to the dollar because I'm not necessarily in the camp that the dollar is like a completely worthless currency. I think it's going to have its moments coming into the future. In the long run, I think it's a completely worthless currency. Like, I wouldn't have it with any kind of expectation of giving it to my kids. Like, I would much rather give them something like Bitcoin or gold or silver or even stocks and bonds. But, but the dollar itself, I mean, as far as holding cash or having, something like that, for a long run, I do not see that as a good idea, not for any kind of length of time. However, here in the short term, especially with a liquidity issue coming in the future, if we have a situation in which that there is a serious demand for for cash to pay off debts, people are going to start dumping out of whatever they can to get cash. They're going to get out of their toys, they're going to get out of their liquidable assets, they're going to get out of a lot of stuff, right? They're going to get out of gold, they're going to get out of real estate, they're going to get out of, Bitcoin, they're going to get out of all those things. Now, where the prices go, to what extent, who knows, right? Now, I would imagine the riskiest stuff, or what people feel is the riskiest stuff, would be the ones that have the most dramatic price moves to it, right? People would much rather get out of risk for a cheaper price than to try and hold on to it, right? That's why they're calling it risk. So, is Bitcoin really that risky at this point? Like, I mean, there was a time, even just a few years ago, that people saw a lot of risk in Bitcoin, but it's not going anywhere. Just like Patrick was just saying, you can't change what it does, right? I mean, you can change what people do with it, like, exchanges, there's price changes to it, there's, whatever, that kind of thing. But the program itself, what Bitcoin is doing out there on the internet, that doesn't change. That's the same thing, and always has been and always will be. So how it is that we interact with Bitcoin is really what it comes down to, okay? So now, again, like, I think Bitcoin is going to be here. forever. Like, I don't see how Bitcoin is going to go away. That's not happening at this point. Like, the genie's out of the bottle. It's on its way, right? And the more people deny it, they're really denying what is coming in the future. I mean, it's now whether it holds that, that illustrious position of being, the world reserve currency, I don't know about that. But it's definitely going to be there. And it's going to have its part within the economy. And to deny that right now is very, I think you're doing yourself a lot of injustice by doing that, because you could actually benefit quite well from the future if you were to hold on to some Bitcoin. To me, like, my whole goal is to acquire at least one. Like, I want to have one in my possession, something that I will have forever, something that I can give to my family, pass on or whatever. Try to have that generational wealth kind of thing going. That's something that I don't know a lot of people who do. It's just like generational wealth, to be able to accumulate a bunch of wealth and then teach your offspring how to maintain this wealth and build it up so that they can, hand it off to the future generations that are coming. Not a lot of people do that. I mean, I don't know a lot of people who do that. I mean, somewhat, land a little bit, family businesses. Mesh networks don't work on the grid. And that's another thing. Like, even if your digital wallet does go down, Patrick, hold on one second. I'll be right back. Okay, I'm back. So check this out. This, right? It's a silver coin. It has silver in it, right? But that's not what's cool about it. What's cool about it is that it has Bitcoin on it. And now I'm going to hold this up there. Oops, where's my camera? It's over here on this side. So I'm going to hold it up there, and hopefully it scans in, or you can scan it. Come on, focus, camera. I don't know if it's scanned. Well, anyway, there's a QR code there, and it's probably not going to come in clear enough that you can scan it. But this is the public key. Let me back it up here a little bit. Maybe you can get it there. Anyway, that's the public key to the wallet that has Bitcoin sitting on it, right? And now this coin right here has, what was it, 1/100, I believe, of a Bitcoin on it. And you can go and check it out for yourself right there. Right, with that QR code. There it goes. Come on. Maybe if I hid behind it. There it is. And this can now be traded, right? So it's Bitcoin. You do have to trust somewhat, right, that the private key, which is behind this little hologram sticker, you could peel that hologram off, and the private key is behind there. So you could take the private key and then send the Bitcoin to a different wallet. Right? So you do have to have some trust in it, which I totally trust Patrick. He handed me this coin. I mean, there's no reason not to trust him, or the people who designed the coin or put the coin together, that they didn't keep that private key for themselves. So there is a trust factor that's involved with it. But if you can overcome the trust factor and say, yeah, okay, I do trust the creator of the token, who put the Bitcoin on there with the private key that's only secure to this particular token, and then put the public key on there so that you can actually see it and send even more. I mean, I guess you could even load it up with even more Bitcoin if you wanted to, right? See, that's another thing. Like, Patrick kind of got upset with me because he found out that I have most of my Bitcoin sitting at Coinbase, and he thought that was just like, I mean, I thought he was almost going to hit me right there in the car. Like, he was like, dude, no, we got to change that. So I guess that's probably something I'm going to do next week. But you could load this thing up with even more Bitcoin, right? And now this is something that you could hand off. You can trade no matter what, right? Whether the power's out or going or whatever. That Bitcoin is on here. And if you have trust for that, well, then that's some way you can operate without having to use the network. And think about it. If you had all kinds of sizes of these, like, you could have this to any size. And I mean, even if you were to say, okay, fine, Bitcoin did become worthless. It's done. It's gone. It's worthless. It's silver. It's a silver coin. It has silver value to it, right? How cool is this? This is like the best piece of like currency that I could ever possibly imagine. I mean, it's digital, it's physical, right? It's private, it's secure. It's way awesome. Patrick, this was a beautiful idea, dude. Great idea. And out of, I think, what do you made? Would you make 1,000 of these if I remember right? I can't remember. This is number 30. Check that out. Number 30. It's way cool. Oops, got too much stuff going on here. All right, smart contract is like a digital agreement and self-executing rules. Imagine buying a vending machine snack. Okay, so like, you punch the code, boop, boop, and then you hit enter and then that's off, right? It's just like now it's happening. I can see it. Oh, sorry, I'm just cleaning off my glasses so I can actually read these. Okay. But yeah, what do you think of that? That's pretty cool stuff, right? All right. My stockpile 9mm bullets for my currency. That's a good way to go. Gold, silver, cash. I need physical to hold hood stuff. Physical to hood stuff. Immediate execution when terms are met. Yeah. Buy a solar generator. I own some too, but very little. Try using digital dollar without the grid. I keep my money in the market. If you can't hold it in the hands these days, you don't own it. Yeah. Again, right? It's almost like a physical Bitcoin, right? I mean, the amount of Bitcoin that's on here, if I took this thing and pitched it into the river, that's it. That Bitcoin's gone forever. This is now physical Bitcoin for a sense. I mean, that's essentially what it comes down to. Again, you do have to put that trust into the idea that that private key hasn't been compromised, right, within it. But as long as you get past that trusting part of it, then, then that's what it is. It's a physical coin. Again, you can scan that right there and go check it out for yourself. And you can see that there's physical, or that the Bitcoin is in that wallet. Russia can change it when they hack it. Be smart. The only stocks I trade are the riskiest. We won't be using microtransactions with Bitcoin. Yeah, I don't necessarily believe that. I mean, I think if there's a secondary layer system that we could. But again, like, I'm not that smart of a guy to figure that out. But again, like, I'm just not that techie to really like dive into all the little aspects of how that would work, But anyway, but knowing that there's secondary layer systems that can make that transactions happen, All right. Have you been talking to the Leprechaun clan as well? Okay, for the record, I want one of those. One of these all-nighter? Well, I believe that Patrick is planning on making them again in the future at some point. 0.001 Bitcoin, yeah. We never see the keys, part of the trick, right? And that's what I find so beautiful about it. Again, the idea behind like silver is that if you have an ounce of silver in your hand, that's it. Like, it's yours. There's no changing that. It's like, it is what it is, and there's no compromise to it, right? Now, it could be like somebody might have tricked you with it and said, hey, gave you an alloy where it's not really silver or something like that. Once you get over the third party trust of this coin, right? When you take it on, and it's just like, okay, I am going to take in the belief that there is no second recording, or there's like the compromising of that private key, then it makes it just as good as gold, in my opinion, right? But it is that third party aspect that you have to get over. If you have a silver coin in your hand, like the silver content of it, you don't. Like, you got that part is yours no matter what, right? And I mean, that silver content of it. The other part, you do have to throw the trust out there. So after you get past that, that's the only thing. That's the only thing that keeps this separated from being a physical Bitcoin and just a digital thing out there that people don't really trust, People like me would laugh at you Bitcoin in an emergency crew down situation. Not this one. This one's physical silver, too. right? All right, I collect lead bullets, 9 millimeter for trading. Almost missed it, but I'm here. All right, PM Galleria, glad to see you. PM Galleria does some really cool artwork with where he actually incorporates silver right into the artwork. It's hold on, I'll go get it. See? Check it out, guys. See, this is the artwork that PM Galleria does. And so he sent this to me. You know, it got like representing the mirror. You got the mirror from the Toyota, got the dice here, got lumber, right? The wood representing lumber, and then all the rain because it rains all the time, you know, where I live. And so he sent this to me. Now, the coolest part about it is that in here is flakes of real precious metals that is right into the painting itself. And if I remember right, it's an ounce that you put on here. And I can't remember, is this gold flake that you put on there? Because I was looking at that and I didn't know if that was like gold or if that was something else that you had put on there. But this is like this is a talking piece that we have like just sitting right there at my desk that we talk about a lot. I like people are like, whoa, where did that come from? And I'm like, yep, that was what a fan made for me, and it has real silver on it. It's way cool, right? I'll set that down there. People send me some cool stuff.
Yeah, they do.
Yeah, they do. See Freddie in the back there? All right. Lightning Network. Try mine. All right. Sold out, guys. Yeah. Call me stupid, but I will keep my physical Troy ounce Buffalo gold coins. Hey, yeah, it's you can play here in just a minute, bud. I'll be done. Then I want two in the second edition. I tested every single round, and it comes with a COA. What's COA mean? Sell bonds, not your gold. Yeah. I've been buying Bitcoin since 2018. I had just gotten sober working as a waiter in San Francisco. I haven't had a drink since 2021. Right on. Good for you, Gunner, man. Congratulations. 2000, or haven't had one since 2018. I got that. Sorry. 2021 was very good for me. I'll keep dollar cost averaging in. Well, good for you, Gunner, man. I'm loving that story. You know, that's one of the weird things that I didn't think was, I didn't realize would happen from this channel was sharing, you know, my experience with alcoholism, you know, and you know, becoming sober or, you know, working on my sobriety and, you know, figuring all that stuff out. Sharing that experience here on YouTube, I didn't know that I was going to get like such the response out of it that I did. A lot of people have come, you know, have messaged me and, you know, have come to me and said, dude, because of you sharing some of your stories and some of the stuff there on YouTube, it inspired me to quit drinking myself. So thank you, right? To hear that, like, I mean, it's amazing because, you know, it's not me who's doing it, right? It's the power within them that gets them to quit drinking. But sometimes it's just hearing somebody else's story that says, man, if they can do it, I can do it, kind of thing. And knowing that I had shared my story, which is, you know, you have to be vulnerable and it's kind of embarrassing and stuff like that, you know, because it's not exactly like something you're proud of doing. But knowing that sharing that story has, you know, inspired other people to follow in that same life of finding sobriety and becoming, you know, a more conscious person of your, you know, surroundings and awareness and stuff like that. That is probably like all the life-changing things that has happened to me with this channel. That's probably one of the been like the most out of nowhere things that I was not expecting, you know, is to have people tell me that that, you know, they completely changed their life from some of the things that I was talking about as far as just sharing my experience with alcoholism. So that's pretty cool, man. I appreciate that. Uh, it's authentic 999 silver guaranteed, right? See, isn't that it's like, I just love it, Patrick, man. I mean, really, this is probably one of the coolest ideas, and I know other people have done stuff that's similar to it, but still, like, this is the type of thing, like, if you, because it does take a bit of trust that's involved with it, right? Because you have to trust that one part of it. But that's really where I find like the excitement that comes into this, because we're a growing community of people who really do understand what is happening out here, and that we have to safeguard, right? We have to safeguard our future, our for our future generations, for ourselves, for everything. And it's ideas like this. This is what we're looking for. This is the type of thing that we need to do, right? And now I understand some people may not like appreciate the idea of the Bitcoin side of things. Other people may not appreciate the precious metal side of things, right? But everybody can appreciate the idea that there is value here, right? For everybody, for one reason or another. I think that's cool. It's like, I can't think of anything that would be better, Yeah, you can't throw the bullets in the water either. Why choose? I have BTC, physical gold, and silver, no conflict with me. I agree. I mean, I agree. That's why I love this thing. It's just like, this is the perfect thing, right? For guys like us, libertarian-minded people who, are looking to be free from government. That's or at least from the overextending hand of government, right? The intrusion into our personal freedoms and beliefs and rights and stuff like that. It's not easy to protect yourself from government in such fashions, especially when you're talking like, protecting your freedoms and rights and stuff like that. Because most people have, I mean, it's very difficult to know what your rights are, right? What your constitutional rights are. It's not something that we're educated in. So you have to educate yourself in it. And not knowing exactly what those things are, how is it that we vote for people in this country that are supposed to protect them, right? We can't. There's no way, because most people don't know if their rights are being trampled on or not. And that's quite unfortunate. So again, like having a growing community of people, regardless if they're into digital currencies or precious metals or whatever it is, this is the type of stuff that joins us all. Yeah. It's awesome. Litecoin leader, I love it. Considering the first edition sold out there will only have to be more coming. Yeah, and and I believe that as like already, I bet you I could sell this thing for a premium, right? I mean, I would assume that like there's people out there even right now who would probably end up giving me more money for this than what Patrick was originally selling them for. So already I feel that it's premium beyond the Bitcoin, beyond the silver value, just the collector value of it. So now you got even a third concept to it, right? The collector value of it. It's good stuff. All right, Michael Burry, 1.6 billion short recently. Yeah, I don't know. Michael Burry, I like Michael Burry because he had that great move. They had that movie about him, The Big Short. And I really dug like his ideas and stuff like that. But I was calling out and not trying to brag or anything about it, but we were just talking about it here on my channel. I was talking about the bullwhip effect and how we were experiencing that in lumber, and it was one of the major four economic theories that I take on quite a bit. And so when I was talking about the bullwhip effect long before, a lot of other people were, and again, it was because I was describing the things that I was seeing here in the lumber industry, and it was the viewers who are saying, dude, what you are describing is the bullwhip effect, right? So I didn't realize it at the time that that's what I was seeing. Like I had heard of the bullwhip effect, but I didn't quite know what that really was, I mean, I knew kind of what it was, but as I started researching more and then looking into my own industry that I was in, I was like, man, this is exactly what is happening. So it's like when I started calling out that bullwhip effect, like a lot of people noticed, when Michael Burry said it, everybody noticed. Everybody was just like, "Oh man, Michael Burry's calling out the bullwhip effect," and I'm like, "Well, we was calling it out months and months and months ago, you know." But that's okay, you know. Michael Burry's cool. All right, you are very fun. Can I ask you a question instead of taxation? Why don't we just print the money? Isn't that the most fair way to tax the people? No. I mean, I guess you could. Really, what you have to think about, like, what is it? What is it that you're looking for out of money? Right? What are you looking for the money to do? Like, most of us, since we don't really understand how the money operates and how the financial systems work and all that other stuff, it makes it difficult to understand what it is that we're supposed to do with our money. And so when you work and you get a paycheck and you take your paycheck and you put it in the bank and you leave it in the bank and you watch the power get deteriorated over time, you wonder, what is it that I'm even supposed to do here? And then you get taxed and you get all this other stuff, and then you hear about them printing all this money up, making it even more worthless, and you're wondering, why is it that I'm even participating within this taxing system if they can just print the money? What's kind of weird about it is, if you think about it like this: if they taxed 100% of our income and 100% of corporate profits, it still would not be enough to cover the unfunded liabilities of Social Security and Medicare. So it's not like on a fixable street. Like, this isn't a fixable system, right? We have to understand that. Like, this is a direction, and it's gonna continue. And whatever happens, in the future, isn't like something that is going to be reverting back to the way it was. Like, that's not the way it goes. It goes in this continual fashion. So, there are going to be times, like we're going to experience, what I believe coming into the future is going to be a liquidity issue. The long distance run is going to be dollar destruction. I mean, it's the only path that they can really take, right? Except for these short times, like we're going to experience here for the next, few months or years or whatever it is. But in the long run, the bigger picture is dollar destruction until complete failure, and however long they can maintain it until that happens. All right. Once America is nuked by the motherland, your bitcoins will be worth nothing. Let's allow just one MP, it wipes you all. No, it doesn't. Like, that's one thing. Like, you have to destroy. I mean, I think Patrick could probably, like, step up and say something about this. Um, the EMP attack hits the United States and wipes out every single computer in the entire United States, Canada, and Mexico. Right? All of them. Does Bitcoin still operate? Patrick, can you answer that question, please? All right. And we're going to go look for his answer here in just a second. Bitcoin won't stop with an EMP. Miners are in the space and under mountains. Right? No, I'm talking every miner in the United States. I'm talking every computer. United States, Canada, Mexico, wiped out completely, gone. All right. Is Bitcoin still going to exist? Okay, not true, Jay Wynn. Where's space underground? Think of where you can get the radio signals. Refined sugar is the drug I struggle with the most, but no one wants to talk about that since we're all addicted to refined sugar. Well, grow some plants. I have to say, I am somebody who, like, Halloween candy, the little, like when boy goes out Halloween trick-or-treating or whatever, and he comes home with that big giant bowl of candy, I will gorge myself on candy. I mean, I don't get it. Like, I like eat a little piece and it just starts sending me going, and then I just can't stop. Snickers are by far my favorite candy bar. I do too. I have an addiction to sugar. If you don't hold it, you don't own it. Virtual means fake, no real. Hi, try saying get to instead of have. Privilege and an honor to get to do things. Respect and gratitude from Oregon. Have fun with Crazy Man Ninja in Vegas. Yeah, I'm really looking forward to meeting Economic Ninja. That's going to be a cool one. Yeah, we chatted a little bit back and forth through email, but this is going to be the first time I actually get to meet him and talk to him, and so that's going to be really cool. I'm looking forward to that. Wish we could be there, Grace Wildflower. Wildflower? Like like the old Wildflower that used to comment all the time on my channel? That would be cool. I remember you. All right, that's cool. Go Ducks. Alcohol is bad, okay? Yeah, alcohol is, well, you know, I shouldn't say it's bad. Alcohol, I mean, alcohol is bad, yeah, but it's not like I think about some of the great times that I had experienced when I was out hanging out and drinking with buddies or hanging out at the bar doing whatever, and I wouldn't give up those times. Like I appreciate having those memories and those good times. Um, what I don't like is what it led me to. So, I take you got to take the good with the bad, I guess. Yeah. Let's go see if Patrick has an answer for that. Uh, or if he's still on, he might have taken off too. Let's see here. All right, back to ITM. Lynette mantra is what I strive to complete. Yep, Lynette's. Yeah, Lynette is cool. I like Lynette. She was one of the nicest ladies. I mean, just for just being incredibly knowledgeable, but she is just one of the nicest people. And like when I met her a couple of times at the Rebel Capitalist event, and when I did, it was just like she treated me like I was family. I mean, like straight up, like asking me about like things going on in my personal life, and just asking about the kids and how things are going, telling me about her farm and the things that she has going on, and being very just sharing a lot of stuff. And it was just cool. I mean, we sat and hung out for like a while. It was a good time. Printing more dollars hurts the poor the most. We need to tribunal all our leaders for what they have done to us for the past 50 years. It's easy to get played when one doesn't know how to play the game. That's for sure. Uh, yeah, DAO. I did the same thing all night. I didn't know what that meant. All right. A realized being would say, one to me is poverty. A realized being one is poverty and wealth. One to me is pain and pleasure. One to me is good and evil. One to me is life and death. Can we say this? I know I can. I sure can't. Yeah. All right. Yes, it does. UE keeps going. Just need one machine running. That's right. Okay, so yeah, we got Litecoin Leader to answer the question for us. Thank you, Litecoin Leader. And that's what I'm kind of getting at is that go ahead, take it out of a country, take it out of several countries, take it out of a bunch of countries. All you need to do is have one computer that's still operating the Bitcoin protocol, operating, right, doing mining or doing whatever it's doing. And then you can start recreating it and start, and making more miners and more, and more nodes, and start reestablishing the whole blockchain again, and the whole network. So there is no taking, like, I mean, there's no taking it out. Like the security of it is too immense. Muscles are my drug of choice. Ex-drinker, sweet tooth, probable. Yeah. We are crazy alike, Simon. I got a crazy sweet tooth as well. Yeah, right? I mean, I watch Economic Ninja all the time. Well, yeah, you should. I mean, that's one thing, like, I mean, people know that I don't really follow a whole lot of other economists, or not necessarily economists, but a whole lot of other YouTubers out there. And it's not because I don't appreciate their work, or I don't think that it's good or valid or anything like that. Like, that's not the reason why I don't do it. I think like if you're trying to study economics, trying to figure this stuff out, trying to, try to really learn and figure out what it is you're supposed to do, you should be looking at as many people as you could possibly look at. Even the ones you don't like, right? Even ones you have information that you think is not good. It's still, I think there's bits of information within that is useful. And so to me, you should take in information from as many places as you possibly can. I stopped watching some of the other YouTubers for the YouTube channel myself, for my own YouTube channel, because I wanted to make sure that what I was doing was me and not me mimicking or parroting some other YouTuber out there. I really like, because I found myself as I was doing these YouTube videos, especially in the early days, is that I would make videos and I would sound a lot like the videos that I was just recently watching. So, if I was watching a lot of Peter Schiff, I would make videos and I would review them and I was like, man, you sound like Peter Schiff, right? And so I realized that, man, you're not necessarily doing this from your own perspectives, from your own thoughts. You're basically regurgitating other people's thoughts. And so I had to, and it was difficult because, like, I'm like, oh shit, man, if I let these guys go, I will never figure anything out. Like, that's like literally what I thought. It was just like, man, if I don't watch this, then I am going to be so lost on everything that's going on out there. It's really the way I felt. And so it was hard for me to do that. And I did it. And I started like finding that the information that I was finding was unique. It was unique to me and my perspectives. Now, it wasn't 100% unique to me, but the combination of stuff that I was putting together was like, it was, kind of unique to me and what I was talking about. And it was coming from a different point of view. Most people who talk economics are usually talking from a fairly high level. They're millionaires, investment, financial advisors, they own businesses or, you know, own investments themselves or doing whatever. I mean, they're like usually people who are quite successful being within the money game, right? But yet here I am, just some dude, working at a lumber yard talking macroeconomics on a level that caught the attention of people on YouTube. Like, I caught the attention of this community. And so I just kept going with it. I'm like, well, don't change, don't change the way you're doing it. Just keep doing what you're doing. And, that's how come I found myself where I'm at now. I really should start, you know, watching a lot more other YouTubers out there. If nothing else, just to be in support of their channels, because the community needs the support of everybody, including the other YouTubers out there. That's why I'm always like, I never knock another person's channel, like, as far as like, what they're doing out there. I mean, I think everybody should have a YouTube channel, and those who are really trying to give something to the world will be successful at it, and that's why I think everybody should be following these other YouTubers as well. And again, like, I should to collaborate so that we can share in the community. But again, like, I'm liking where I've gone, as far as like the understanding and the direction that I've taken the channel. It's working for me. All right. Silver Symposium has a virtual Zoom option. Yes, it does. So you don't actually have to. I forgot to tell you guys that. Yeah, it has a option to attend the symposium by Zoom meeting, and if I remember right, you get an ounce of silver still for doing that. So that's pretty cool on top of it all. Yep, she's real too. What are you talking about? Grow your own food is the most valuable thing, but it's been very difficult for me. Yeah, you can also take on another hobby, canning. I'm sure you probably know something of that, or know how to do some of that. But canning is an excellent way to preserve food for the future. And right now, like, there's a lot of times, again, we found pork on sale, found chicken on sale. I mean, when you find these good deals out there, buy a bunch of it. Like, literally, you could spend a weekend just canning up chicken meat, right? So you can do a whole year's worth of canning of chicken meat in, well, maybe not a year's worth, but you could do a lot, right, inside of a weekend. if you were to go and purchase a bunch of chicken from the store when it's on sale and just spend the weekend processing and canning up a bunch of that, chicken, and then you'll have food and never have to worry. Well, you will have to worry about it in the future, but you wouldn't have to worry about it as much. Oh, decentralized autonomous organization. Most are crypto related. Thank you. Oops. I like your point. Grow food and water are direct forms of survival while wealth is indirect. My mind keeps going to dead on arrival. No problem. Looking forward to seeing you again, Simon, in Vegas. Jeff here. Right on. Nice, man. I look forward to seeing you too. The poor are miserable because they have not. The wealthy are always in fear of loss and also are miserable. Buddha. Yeah, and that's something that's kind of interesting about it is like, again, like I was saying, what I was looking for in my life as far as the things that I really wanted, it's not like I don't really care about material possessions. Like I really don't. It's like I'm not into it. It's not for me. Um, I think the Camaro would be fun to have. Like, I mean, I would like that. I would like a lot of tools because I don't think I work enough, doing my own like crafts and working around the house and stuff. So, tools, that would be a possession I would like to have, and a Camaro would be fun to have. That's it. Like, that's the only thing I can really think of. I don't want material stuff. It's not in me. I want a really good, I want some good steak. I want a good view and I want nice music. That's what I want. I want my atmosphere to be good, clean, you know, inviting. Yeah, that's it. That's the only thing I really want. I mean, it's not that hard. I'm simple. I'm just make it really easy, right? I don't have to have all that other stuff. It would be cool to have a jet airplane I could go flying all over the place in, but I can fly anywhere I want anyway. I mean, it would be more convenient to have my own jet airplane. But I mean, the result is the same, right? If you can go anywhere you want, it's the same thing. So it's just like I already got that. I don't need a jet airplane. I can go anywhere I want. So that's the way I kind of feel about a lot of stuff out there. So being rich, yeah. I mean, I don't know. Like, I think it would be kind of cool to be rich if I had like a lot of things going on that made me rich. Like I had a lot of businesses or deals or something else going on. But really, like going to work every day, raising, having the family, doing what I'm doing. This is like I think this is it, man. This is like what you're supposed to do. All right. Oh, it's been almost 3 hours. Okay, I'm not gonna go past 3 hours. My lips are drying out anyway. I need some water. All right. I love economics, but I only listen to Ross Cameron. Well, you're listening to me too. I mean, you don't have to listen to me, but but I seem to be in your ears right now. All right. Good thing about having money is that you can pick your own misery. Yeah, I guess that's one way of looking at it. I like the viewpoint. You have your own viewpoints. I'm sorry. I like that you have your own viewpoints. Yeah. So I need to learn how to read too. Well, thank you, Carol. Yeah. And that's, again, like, I didn't come out here to be an actor. Like, if I wanted to be an actor, which I would like to do, I mean, I think acting would be fun to do, I would have, like, continued to, like, you know, try out for plays and stuff like that. Um, Auditions, audition for plays and stuff. But, like, acting isn't really, like, a passion of mine. Like, I think it would be fun to do. I get to attempt to do a little bit of acting. I get to do like kind of my stand-up thing every weekend, calling bingo. So, that's kind of like my entertainment thing. But, out here on YouTube, although I try to make it entertaining so that it's fun to watch and stuff like that, I, you know, I wanted to be serious about this. I didn't want to come out here and be an actor, and try and like do and say things that was going to be entertaining, that was going to be meeting the approval of audiences for entertainment purposes like that. That's not what I was really attempting to do out here. I was trying to be authentic and real and share my experiences and views and stuff like that, and just to be as honest as I could with it. And it's worked out pretty well for me, and I think that could work for anybody doing anything. Like I think that if you were to take that same mindset towards anything you do, it would be the same results. I would agree that all the poor and all the wealthy fit into those two boxes. Yeah. Generally speaking, and fitting the comment in the space available. Simon has the ability to explain complex economics in a plain and simple manner, proving he has deep understanding. Thanks, Nider. Yeah, I don't know if I necessarily have as much of a deep understanding as like a lot of people do out there. There's some people who really understand like particular aspects of the economy that are just like insanely like deep. Like they just that conversation. Like for those of you who might remember, I posted on the community page. There was a picture of Mike Maloney, George Gammon, and Lynn Alden having a conversation about currency creation. I was so it took everything I could do to hold on to what it is that they were even talking about. Like, I mean, it was a deep, deep conversation that they were going into. And I think about it. It was just like the information that they were talking about, right? Although it was very intriguing and like, it was very like, deep and knowledgeable. At the end of the day, like I don't know what changed my understanding of economics, if any, by what it was that they were talking about, right? Because they were talking about currency creation and how money comes into the system and stuff like that. And they were getting down into like the micro aspects of how this is happening, right? And to me, like I'm thinking that's a lot like arguing about like how the boat is leaking, right? Although it's probably good to understand how this is taking place, I think the point is that we need to bail the boat out, right? And like we need to do something other than just discuss how this thing is occurring. Even though like understanding how it's occurring might, be able to prevent it from actually taking place. But that's kind of like my thought on it. It was just like there's a bigger issue that is happening right now that this may not necessarily be the reason. Like we know there's a hole in the boat, but how it got there or why it's leaking isn't necessarily what needs to be discussed. What needs to be discussed is how we get the water out of the boat and how we get back to land, right? Like those are the things we should be discussing. So again, like, and not to say that their discussion wasn't important. I mean, they were just having a conversation, right, about it all. And whether or not they should have been having the conversation, that's not the point of that either. Like they should definitely have that conversation. But to me, like trying to understand it to that level, I don't think is nearly as important as understanding that it is taking place and what the cause and effects of it happening is, not necessarily how it is happening, right? I mean, although that could be important too. I have a damn time explaining things in text, let alone limited text. Yeah. And I mean, understanding this stuff again, like, to a level that I feel is what is appropriate for me anyway. Anybody could like, when you take on those four economic theories, right? Cantillon effect, Gresham's law, Triffin's dilemma, and the Bullwhip effect, and you really think about them, right? Think about how they've occurred in the past, how they are occurring today. What would it take for these things to occur again in the future? It really, you start like aligning a lot of what the economy is. You start really lining it up. It starts painting the picture and starts clearing it up in a lot of ways. What ends up blurring it is when we start incorporating like stuff like environment, politics, religion, social, social stuff, that's happening, the social consequences or movements that are happening out there. You start pushing all this stuff in there, and all those things interact with the economy, which is true, right? I mean, they do interact with the economy. And a lot of times we can see that they interact with the economy so much that we think that what they are doing is making the economy work in a particular way, right? But that's not what's happening, right? The economy is doing its thing, and all these different aspects are now interacting with the economy. How we view it and what we look at really determines what that economy is going to be. So, like, if you're looking at it from a political point of view, it will definitely be all about politics. I mean, no matter what you do, what I say, it doesn't matter, right? It doesn't matter what anybody else says. If your view of it is from a political point of view, then you will see how all the political decisions out there are the reasons why the economy the way it is, right? But it's not that, right? What's happening is that the politicians are interacting with what is happening with the economy, right? And they do it in such a way that we perceive it as a form of manipulation to the economy, but it's not. It's the economy is operating, and they are trying to manipulate their power, and that's interacting with the economy. The economy is you and me, right? We're the economy. The decisions that we make, the things that we do, the jobs that we work at, the decisions that we make as a personal person, right? As each individual, that's what makes up the economy, right? Not a decision coming from a politician or a bank or something else like that. They do things that interact with us, and we start interacting with this idea. We start taking out loans and then go with our ideas, about like starting a business or buying a house or doing whatever. So we're the ones who are the economy, our production, our efforts, right? Everything else is interacting with us, and we allow them to control it. Like, even just putting the idea that it's a political thing that's happening is taking the power away from you and putting it into somebody else and saying, this is the reason why my life sucks, is because them guys right there, they're in office. And if they weren't in office, my life would be so much better. So you take all these things that you should really be holding on for yourself, and you take it and you put it on the external, and you say, hey, there's my problem out there, right? If these guys didn't behave in that fashion, I wouldn't have this miserable life or whatever. But that's not what's happening. You have given that power to somebody who has then put it into a miserable position for you, instead of just holding on to it for yourself and looking at those guys and saying, their actions don't really affect me, right? I interact with this economy in my own fashion, from my own decisions, from my own place, right? Because I understand it, right? I understand what's happening out here, and I'm not going to give them that kind of power, Is it getting late? Is it time? I know. I've been doing this for like 2 hours and 50 something minutes. You want to talk to him for a little bit? You want to say hi? Freddie. Freddie, you want to give him a brief rundown on what cantillon effect is? He knows how. He does. Here, tell him real quick. Just kind of give him what you think cantillon is with the increasing decrease the money that's is. Here, sit here and tell him. I'm gonna set this up. Do your best.
I'm trying to.
You can do it. I know it's embarrassing, but you can do it.
I know. Cantillon effect. Nations make money by producing stuff, and then they get more money, so they buy from other nations, and then this nation loses money when the other nations make more money, and then that basically goes in a cycle with multiple nations over and over again.
Well, you got some of it in there.
Yeah.
We'll try to get it. He's a little nervous. He knows it, though. We've been discussing it a few times. But you remember, it's like when the nation goes into production, what happens is they get that increase of money, and they start moving into luxuries. And it was that move into luxuries that starts bringing in the foreign production, and that's what he was trying to say. He got it. He knows. He was just a little nervous.
I know this is going to collapse. I just know it.
Freddie is the coolest. So I'm just going to give it a few more minutes here, guys, and then we're going to call it a night because it's been almost 3 hours now. LCL, I have a damn time explaining. Oh, we already did that one. Okay. Curating your information sources is essential. The fact is that we have limited time to research. Yeah, and that's another thing. Like, so that's what somebody else had told me. It was just like, they're like, I appreciate the things that you do and the time that you have taken to put out these videos. And especially like, I know I've a lot more live streams lately, which are a lot longer, but the short videos, he says, I just don't really have time. He says, I have a very busy schedule and business going on and has a lot of stuff. And if it wasn't for these type of videos, like YouTubers, like, myself and, the other guys, Economic Ninja and, everybody really, um, without them, then he would really be lost on a lot of the things that are happening out there because he just doesn't have the time to read through the articles and do the research. And so he puts a lot of trust into guys like us to do the research and to come up with these videos so that he can get a better understanding. And, that's way cool. Like, that's way cool to have like somebody say that to you. It's just like, man, keep doing that. It's just like, I don't agree with everything you say. I mean, it's like, I don't even agree with half of what you say, but I really like the information that you're putting out there because it's that I'm looking for. I'm looking for like those topics that you have been hitting on, this is like the Russian and the diamonds thing, that's the type of stuff that, he may not have heard about if it wasn't for, a video like mine. And so, yeah. All right, I get grossed out by eating stuff growing from the ground. Why? Man, I get grossed out by eating stuff that doesn't come from the ground. Yeah, like, actually, that's not true. If I had my choice, if there was a place that I wanted to get my food from, it would be the ocean. Like, that's where I would eat from, is from the ocean. I guess that's better than a year's worth of chunky soup and SpaghettiOs. Pemmican, Lasbert, yeah, that really salty meat protein stuff. I scrutinize where I spend my valuable time, so when YouTubers I watch collaborate, it's just much better. Appreciate your support, Simon. Well, I appreciate your support, All Nighter. You've been there, man. You're there. You're there on my channel. You're there at the Rebel Capitalist, man. You're there at the other YouTubers. You're like you're like the super YouTuber fan, man. Like everybody. If a YouTuber has All Nighter commenting on the channel, like you're good. You're like a successful YouTuber. It's like almost. I don't know. It's like almost like a signal. Like, it's just like, dude, you're finally getting there. when all nighters commenting on your stuff. All right. I want to be a billionaire so freaking bad. Buy all of those things I never had. Not me. I mean, I wouldn't. It would be cool to have a bunch of stuff like like jet skis and fast cars. And what do you want, Freddie?
I don't know.
See, Freddie doesn't even know. What do you want to eat?
Eat?
Yeah. What's your favorite thing to eat?
Sushi.
Sushi? Where would you like to have sushi? You want to go to Japan?
I don't know.
Go to Japan to have sushi? What's your favorite kind of sushi, Fred?
Vegan.
You like those you like that vegan sushi
Yes.
roll that we get? Yeah, that one is pretty good. Bingo Live, Simon, are you going to bring it back? I'm trying. I want to. I'm working on it. I am very how do you say it? Cautiously and very I'm trying to get it back in, right? But there's issues that are with recording and videoing. We got gambling in the background. We got drinking, and these things are not necessarily something that I can have going on a live channel, live views. And then also not everybody is necessarily wanting that out there for the public to see. So it's kind of hard for me to do this and try to figure out how to keep it like private at the same time, like because it's like how do you do this game? And so I'm trying to figure it out. It's I got a lot of people on board with wanting to do it, the live stream, but I haven't like narrowed it down to make it very so that I don't piss anybody off. That's the thing like I'm trying to do. All right, you can borrow my private jet when I'm not using it. Well, All Nighter, thank you, man. I appreciate that. I want to fly to Alaska and go catch fish. That's what I want to do.
Yes.
See, you want to do that, Fred?
Yes.
See, that's what we want to do. Like jet skis? You okay with that? What would you rather do, go fishing or jet skiing?
I don't know. I mean, you can do it at the same time. Just drive out and then
Do it at the same time. All right. I want to be on the cover of Forbes magazine. Smile next to Oprah and the Queen. You can have that. Simon, I too only long for material things that have utility. A tiny house, tools, shed, etc. A house is a machine for living. Some land, cows, dog, horses. Wife is optional. That is funny. I tell you my acting story in Vegas. You'll get a kick out of it. I can't wait to hear it, man. Paradox of money. To have security, you can't spend it. To enjoy it, you're spending it. Yeah. George put a video up today on his channel, More George Gammon, about that conversation. Can't take it with you when you go. So true. Do you agree with Gammon's take on the housing market? I don't know what Gammon's take is. I don't know what Gammon's take is on it right now. My take on the housing market is that the inventory level is too low. That the idea that rising interest rates were going to crash the housing market didn't happen, didn't manifest itself. I talk to builders all the time who tell me that they are building all cash, like their customers are not taking out loans to build a home. They are building homes out of all cash. So to me, like, this is a very limited housing market. Like, if you don't have a lot of people building homes, then where is the new inventory going to come from? Where is that rise in inventory? Like, I've talked about this several times. You're going to have a rise in inventory from one way or another, right? And if the interest rates are elevated and there's not a lot of people buying and selling homes, like, flipping homes around because of the low interest rates, like, houses were very liquid at one time, right? You could have a house and put it on the market and sell it within hours, right? So, like, there was no waiting around for a house to sell. Well, that's not necessarily the conditions today, right? So, houses aren't exactly the fastest thing on the market to sell. Well, if that's happening, then builders aren't exactly excited about putting new inventory out there. So the new inventory is going to come from foreclosures or people just wanting to sell one way or the other. Now, what will get them to sell? If they could buy another house, right? If you sell your house, you have to be able to buy another one. And if interest rates are elevated, you're not going to sell a low interest rate house like everybody got themselves into. So those with low interest rates are like locked in. They're like, man, I ain't going nowhere, and I'm going to hold on to this thing till I can't possibly, hold on any longer. And even people are like, well, even with the idea, let's take on the idea that, there are foreclosures, right? So unemployment starts to rise and we get this rise in foreclosures. I can imagine that if you are a home buyer, right, you have a mortgage and you just lost your job and you're thinking, okay, I can't make my house payments anymore. I would move out into my car in the driveway and rent the house out, right? Because you're still got incredibly high rents. Now, that may not be the case if we have a rise in foreclosures, but if we don't have the rise in foreclosures because people are moving out of their house and into their car and renting the house out, you see where I'm kind of getting at? Like, people are going to take on a much different idea than what they had before within the housing market. There was a very obscure thing that was taking place. People were buying homes who really shouldn't have had them, right? And that's something that I don't think a lot of people are considering, is that the loans that are issued out over the last 5, 6, 7 years, even longer than that, have been some of the most qualified buyers out there, right? During the Great Financial Crisis, or prior to the Great Financial Crisis, anybody could have got a loan. Like, I know I was one of them, right? And I lost my house because I couldn't afford to continue on with the payments when the housing market, or when the recession kicked in, the housing market turned down, I lost my job in construction. I couldn't make it anymore, right? And I ended up losing my house. But I don't think a lot of people are going to be in that same position anymore, because it's not like these loans were going out to people who couldn't really afford them, or multiple loans, or no job verifications and stuff like that. So it's not the same toxic mortgages that are in the system like they once were. And the fact that there's very few of them actually being issued, right now, right? The financial mortgage market is in like shambles, right? It's in terrible condition. And the homes that are selling, even a third of them right now, even the few of them that are selling, are going to all cash buyers, right? Those guys don't care where interest rates are. This housing market is not in a position, in my opinion, to have a major downturn. Like, it will definitely downturn in areas. Like, I could definitely see it happening in my area. Houses just went way too far, too fast, right? And when you have a situation like that, you're going to see a downturn. Now, just to kind of give you an idea, like, I watched this house go up on the Zillow estimate, which I know a lot of people won't, agree with the Zillow estimate bullshit. Okay. But it went up on the Zillow estimate more every month than I could earn from my job, YouTube, and my wife's job combined. The house was going up that much every single month, like more than that. It was making more than I could make, like if I was to be able to take out that estimate or that increase on the estimate. It went up so far, right, that there has recently been, on that same estimate, better than $70,000 has come off that number, right? And I am still sitting in a position in which that I have $110,000 equity in this house from that Zillow estimate. Like, it would have to go so much further down, like twice what it's already done, before I would be underwater on this house. It's like, that isn't gonna be like, and again, I only bought my house less than 2 years ago, right? So how many people are sitting in a position in which that they have purchased a house in the last 2 years, when when mortgage sale or home sales have dropped significantly? Like, how many people are sitting in a position right now where they have purchased a home and it has high interest rates attached to it? Not nearly as many that had refinanced their home or even paid their home off, right, prior to the pandemic or during the pandemic, when the interest rates were really low. So this is really what I see. It's just like, I don't see the housing market turning down. Like, the only thing I could really see it happening is if unemployment rose significantly and we saw mass unemployment start to leak its way into people, like foreclosures, rents, stuff like that. But it isn't happening, not at this point. It might be happening in some areas, and there might be evidence of it happening and growing in a lot of areas out there. But to the extent that it actually has taken the housing market back down to, like, where it was even in 2018 or something like that, I mean, it's got such a long ways to go. I mean, it has got a long ways to go. So, I don't know. Like, maybe people see it differently than that, but that's the way I see it. All right. I'm going to have to call it quits, guys. I'm out here for 3 hours now. Simon is describing exactly what MSM promotes. All right. In the world, you have to run as fast as you can to stay in place. Okay, guys. Well, I'm going to go down to the very bottom. I'm going to read the last couple of comments here, and then I am going to head over and get something to eat. All right. Hey, Brody, good to see you, man. If something is going up that fast, it's coming back down, unsustainable growth. Well, I believe it, but that's where I'm kind of getting at. Like, how far, like, if it went up that fast, right, and it comes back down to what I had even purchased it at, right, the amount that it come off that price is significant. When people say, well, house prices have dropped 10% or something like that, and I'm like, 10% still hasn't even gotten to where I paid for it yet. Like, it's got to drop another, 5 or 6% to get there. And then it's going to have to drop another 10% after that to get to be underwater, right? Because they made me put 10% down on the damn house. So it's like, I mean, for me, it's like, like underwater is so far away from where I'm at. I mean, it's just like so far away. I'm not saying it ain't going to happen. I mean, I've been underwater before on a house before. Wasn't fun, lost the house, so I definitely know what it feels like, and I've been there before, but I just don't see that happening right now, Gammon put out a video on housing last week. You should really take a look at it. It's an interesting watch. Yeah, I might do that. Unsustainable houses in my neighborhood are 700 to 1.6. China's real estate market is the one to watch. Yeah, I agree. Right. Simon, do you see price dropping all the way to pre-COVID levels, or is that impossible? Price dropping, like housing price dropping? No, I don't think that's going to happen. No. Historically, in New Mexico, our house prices have only gone up for the past 50 years. Stay based, Huey. Will do. My prediction is prices will stay put as time and inflation goes on, and that's how the prices will drop. Yeah, I agree. I guess, like, to kind of think about it, like housing prices kind of went like this for a while. What All Nighter is saying is that they've done up, and then it is gonna go flat for a while, right? Even though, like, you'll find inflation, all these other things will go up eventually, like, because the housing market had moved so dramatically fast, it's going to plateau off for a while till things catch up to the extent that the housing market had moved, right? And I could see where that could happen for a while. You might find some areas where it drops dramatically and some areas where it grows, but for the most part, it's going to be fairly flat, not doing a whole lot for a while. I mean, who knows how long? 10 years? Maybe not that long. What's the square footage on your new house? Bro, you never did tell us. I can't remember exactly what it is. It's like,
Isn't it like 400?
oh no, bro, your room's like 400.
I
I'm kidding. No, 400 is quite a bit. It's Freddie sleeps in the living room. He doesn't sleep. He has a bedroom. He just sleeps on the couch all the time. I think, if I remember right, it's just shy of 2000. I think it's like 1875, if I remember right. Or is it 21?
I don't know.
I can't remember now offhand.
Annie's is definitely a lot because he has that giant field.
Well, that's the entire property, though.
Yeah.
We're talking just the house.
Oh.
But it's like, yeah, it's a 4-bedroom. It's like 2,000 square feet. Unemployment will have to go higher to have a chance at housing crash. And that's, yeah, and that's really, I mean, that's the only avenue that I see is that unemployment would have to rise significantly, and then there would have to be a rise in foreclosures after that. People or delinquencies and payments and stuff. And then even at that point, I'm thinking, why don't just rent the house out, sell the house, do whatever, It's not like, I mean, I don't know. I'm trying to, because like it was the housing market crashed so dramatically back during the great financial crisis because there were so many toxic securities in the market. People who shouldn't have had loans got loans, and they were the reasons why the market was crashing. If you have people who are able to make their payments, then you're not going to have as big of issues. Even if you have a rise in unemployment, the people who had taken out loans were, again, qualified individuals who were probably responsible enough to know what it is that they can do if they did go into unemployment, such as renting the house out or selling it or doing something like that. So again, like, I don't see the same issues that we saw during the great financial crisis. I mean, I can see where the pressure, like the price pressures are there, like, like the condition has put itself to be like, ample for a huge crash. But I don't, like, just by the number of it, but I don't necessarily see that being taken place with the reality of the situation. All right. Okay, guys, I'm going to call it quits. Last comment from Austin. I'm starting a business call center. Oh, boy. Call center for car dealerships, and I'm worried about what the future holds. Should I find something more stable? I think you should follow whatever it is that you feel that is like appropriate for what you're doing, man. I mean, I don't know nothing about that. Like, I know nothing about what it is that you just mentioned there, but you might know a lot about it. And like, if you see the capabilities of making money at that, I say go for it, yo. I mean, that's it. Like, I don't know anything about what it is that you were just saying, But again, like, if you have a specialized knowledge and you can see that there's abilities to make money in it, I say go for it. If you can do it during these times, right? If you can make money during times when it's tough, then think about how awesome it's going to be when the times are easy, right? Congratulations. Nice keep up the good work. Sorry for the typo a minute ago. No worries. When are you going to buy your son an AR or AK? I don't know. We're still having fun shooting pellet guns right now, so we'll get into that maybe later. That okay? You're right. It was. All right. Looking for a wife who isn't a feminist, liberal, vaccinated, and is around age 22 to 27. Well, Jesus is King 77. What you're going to have to do is become an incredibly high value man. You're going to have to understand responsibilities, respect, authority. You're going to have to understand assertive. You're going to have to understand what it is to have status within your community. You're going to have to know what it is to be a leader, a figure that can handle any situation that's out there. That's what you're going to have to do. You're going to have to know how to behave in the top 10% of what men can do out there, not the 90% of people who are just suffering with their own messed up thoughts and living in mom's basement kind of attitudes, right? That's how you do that stuff. And then you can have it. Later, Simon. Thanks for the stream. Thank you, Brody. Good luck, Jesus. You're seriously based, man. See you guys. All right, Roger. 1022 would be a good setup from a pellet gun. Absolutely, it would. The Ruger 1022, by far my favorite little rifle. If anybody is out there looking for a firearm to get for their very first purchase, Ruger 1022. Great little item to have. Okay. Thank you, everybody, for being here so much. We got 69 viewers who made it to the very end of this stream for 3 hours and 15 minutes. Oh, my gosh, my voice is starting to go. I had 180 likes with $36.99 in super chats. You guys are always so very supportive of the channel. Thank you very much for that. I really appreciate everything you all do for the channel. Uneducated Economist. You let me know. Oops.